I like watching Zizaran stream, so for that reason, I'm down just to watch it. I think this could be fun. All right, we're going to get a lot of info here. Prepare yourselves.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining. Welcome, everybody. I am joined here today by Jonathan Rogers, Director on Path of Exile 2.
No problem. I mean, you know, it's always good to talk to you. We've done a number of these interviews, and I honestly, I'm always happy just to talk to whoever's got good questions for me, honestly.
Yeah, I've tried to do just that.
I have good questions. Why do you want to talk to me? You know, to be a small streamer, it is what it is.
So I've sent Jonathan some of the questions ahead of time just so he could prepare. We could have a little bit less dev check. And yeah, I've tried really hard to not have any repeat questions except for a few that I really want to push back a little bit on and talk a little bit about.
Sure.
But yeah.
I used to have 2K viewers, to be fair.
Yeah, it was honestly, it's been so many things that's been changing. So while like making questions with chat, it's been a little bit like, have they answered this? So like it's yeah, but very excited for this. So I want to start with an interesting question for me personally, because PoE 2 is so different than PoE 1. And I don't know how familiar you are with World of Warcraft, but a big event there for me was the Gates of Ahn'Qiraj opening with like basically the server coming together and working on something and that affecting like a little bit of the future outcome. So have you ever thought of doing a league like that where the future of the league or how it goes core depends on how us as players perform during the league?
The problem with that is like, it's guaranteed to happen, right? So it's not like it depends on the players. Also, secondly, you can't see the other players in your instance. Like, I don't think it translates well to PoE, but sure, why not?
As a quick example, like
this just started, Daisu. It just started a minute ago.
Maybe we lose the war towards Breach, or we win the war, and that like changes the future league. There's
no way you can lose the war. I don't see it.
It's something interesting. I feel like we did something like this before, but I'm trying to remember which thing it was. Wasn't it like Tempest, actually? Like, I feel like Tempest had a mechanic like this, but maybe it was like really not obvious. Like, it's actually the kind of thing I am interested in doing. We just haven't really kind of ended up with a league design that kind of wanted to do it. Because you have to be really careful with that stuff, that you don't, like, it can be frustrating for players just because, okay, probably not the thing you're referring to, because that's the whole like coming together and actually like towards a single goal over the long term. But we've had a few mechanics where playing the league affected before, and I think Tempest was one of them where like, I think it was that one, where the more people who farmed something, after a certain number of people had farmed it, it actually, the mechanic moved us to another location.
Oh, that's cool too.
And yeah, so that was kind of interesting, but like I think that we sort of decided for that particular case that we weren't like that happy with it, because I kind of had this thing of like, you know, the idea of unfairness of like, you know, oh, you have like, someone says like, oh, this happened in the middle of the night, you need to wake up and do this, and so we kind of weren't happy with that. But I mean, the thing you were saying there about the gates, I mean, like that's pretty cool. I just like, I guess you have to be prepared for like both outcomes and then exactly what you're going to do in both cases. Like it needs to actually feel like it had a meaningful impact.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be the follow-up league. Like it could be something that you do half a year later or something. Like you say that we have to kill like 6 billion monsters, and if we don't, like the league will be different.
Right.
But yeah,
I think that would be boring, honestly. Like kill 6 billion monsters. Like first of all, you as a player don't really contribute much to it, and second of all, either it happens or it doesn't. You're not going to have people, oh my god, you got to get together and push. And even if that happens, I feel like it's a boring mechanic. I'm not a fan. I think it works really well again in World of Warcraft because you see all the people around you. You feel like you're actively a part of something really big. Doing it on your own, in your own instance, when no one else is around you, I think it's a different carryover. Now, I think it would be cool if there are 2 separate outcomes where the player base fight each other. I think that could be interesting. For example, let's say, on one hand, you can do something that opens up Solaris's temple, and another thing for Lunaris, and like, you know, players... First of all, you can't do it in terms of just sheer how many monsters you kill, because the moment one side starts winning, the other side gives up. Oh my god, 60% of players are pushing on the left. Well, the players on the right are like, well, we can't win. We're outnumbered, we quit. If it was something more like the first 5, I'm just giving an example, like 5 mirror drops on either side will dictate which side opens. Not mirrors necessarily, but something rare happening. Like once this has been done 10 times in this direction, this will be where the game goes next league. That could be cool, because then people say, wow, I really want the league to go this way or that way, and people farm for that big RNG drop to happen. I'd enjoy that.
Yeah.
I guess I'm also kind of into the idea of...
Yeah, you're not going to split them down the middle, but if you make it RNG based, then people feel like they can make the difference. Imagine like if there was a drop that is as rare as a mirror, and once 5 of those are found, you open that content and the other content closes. Well, now players are like, holy shit, I want to try to, I want this to happen. I'm going to be farming that place, and maybe I'll be lucky, drop the item, and I can be one of the contributors, and I can make a real difference. I think something like that could be really cool. But you have to be careful how you make it so it's actually fun to do, even if you're not one of the people to drop it, since almost nobody is going to drop it. So you don't want to make it feel like, wow, well, I just farmed this for 2,000 hours and nothing happened.
Although maybe people aren't, of like, you create like a thing that once you've achieved it, unlock something for all players. Like that kind of stuff could be potentially fun. So I mean, there's stuff you could do there. But I don't have any plans for it in particular. Like I haven't actually thought too much about this kind of stuff. But
yeah, I have 1900
like,
hours.
I don't know, it's kind of interesting. I'll keep it in mind
something.
when we're doing the next league design for sure.
Nice, cool. So I have a few questions about stash tabs. The first one is for things that don't have a PoE2 equivalent, like let's say Blight, right? Are we just not getting a tab at all, or are we going to instead get like a regular premium tab or something like that?
Yeah, so currently you don't get anything, and basically that's because we still want to be able to potentially add that content later, and then at that point that tab will be, for that league. So if we gave you something now, then we'd have to, like, I guess, read only the other. If we gave you a bonus tab now, we'd have to like give you a read only one or something like that. And effectively, the main thing is that we're trying to just make it so that where it makes sense, the thing you bought before will work. I think that for the particular one you mentioned there. Yeah. I suspect that in the future there'll be a time when that will work again, and so you're kind of going to be good in that regard. Okay. But I guess it might be like, it is worth bringing up though that if we get to the point of like literally we're never going to use this ever in PoE2, I suppose we could consider like having a replacement tab for something like that. But at least for the time being, like we still intend that a lot of that stuff still gets used anyway.
That would be really cool. So we know there's something like league races, like league start races. I love that idea, Exart. I think that is genius. And I cannot believe I've never thought about that. But imagine this. Every time there's a league race, some people win, some people lose. Imagine if they actually live streamed a gigantic, like, spin the wheel with everyone's name on it. And you can actually even go to the site and like look to see where your name is. And then it's spinned live to see who wins what, like for the bigger prizes. So you actually feel like, oh my God, what if it lands on my name? I think that would get massive viewership. I think that'd be really cool for those like league race prizes, for the bigger ones. Like, let's say the top 20 prizes, they spin the wheel 20 times on stream to see who wins. Dude, I'd be down for that. I'd be watching just to see if it lands on my name. I'd be excited.
Makes sense. Now, the next question is also about stash tabs. And
they carry over, yes. They do.
I remember at some point, there was a big discussion about consolidating normal tabs and letting people make quad tabs. Now, if I recall correctly, the reason this didn't go through is there was a big issue with like database problems because we already have stuff in remove only tabs, right? PoE2 doesn't have this issue. Is there a chance that we can, like, for example, there's quite a lot of people like me that have 100 normal stash tabs and would like to merge 4 at a time into a quad stash tab. Is that something that could be an option now with PoE2?
Let me think about that.
Nope.
So it's certainly not something that we've done. I suppose we could potentially do that. I have to say that I'm personally not a huge fan of the quad tab overall, just because, like, I understand the like gameplay utility of it, but it's just, I don't know. There's something about it that sucks a little bit to me, of just about the way that it just. I feel like you don't appreciate the items the same way. Now, admittedly, if you're just playing the game and you're like, you don't care about this at all, right? Like, I understand that you don't, and so it's fine. We've got that option. But yeah, it's just one of those things that I've kind of never really loved about it. Like, it kind of makes the items just look a bit lame, but whatever. As I said,
He's 100% right, though. I think you can't. Okay, so this comes down to optimization versus fun. If you give people the option to have quad tabs, they're going to always use them because it's more optimal to use them, right? And once they get used to quad tabs, they don't want to use non-quad tabs anymore because quad tabs are superior. They're more efficient. But if people never had the option, never knew about them in the first place, they'd probably have more fun using normal tabs because you get to actually see your items better and appreciate what you farmed better. This is equivalent to, imagine if Path of Exile had an option in the settings that gives your character 100% more movement speed. Everyone would use it. And then if they decided to say, well, we're going to remove the option, we think it sucks, everyone will complain because they got used to the new default speed, which is faster. Does that mean that doubling everyone's movement speed is a positive thing for the game? No. but players will still do it because of efficiency. And once they get used to that efficiency, they can't stand playing at half speed anymore. It's like what happened in TCG Simulator when we played. They gave us the option to like quadruple the speed of opening packs. You use it, but it makes the game less objectively fun long term. So what he's saying is correct, but Ziz would still like to consolidate all the tabs because, again, he's used to the quad tab mechanic. He just wants to use quad tabs because it's more efficient.
I understand that in practice, like for a gamer, it's like you don't care about this. But yeah, like I guess it's one of those. We haven't done this. I guess we theoretically might be able to do that, but yeah, as I said,
Jonathan's
it's just
right,
not something we've done
on this.
Yeah, I'm a very big fan of the quad tabs, and I actually it's funny you brought up Tempest. That's actually where I ended up buying 100 normal tabs. Because the radiating Tempest and the 20 XLs, I was like, and I was new at the time, and you know, when you're new to the game, you don't want to get rid of everything. So, the next question is, we've seen on the PoE health bar that there are numbers now, right? So we have basically damage numbers in the game. So I wanted to bring up, have you thought about letting us have a literal target dummy?
Okay, so we've thought about this for sure. The concern that came up the moment we discussed the target dummy is, okay, what resistances does it have? What, like, you know, like what like all this kind of stuff. Like basically they'd have to be stateful. Like how much armor does it have? How much evasion does it have? Like all these things. And so then we started getting into, okay, like you'd have to have some way to set these values, right? You'd have to be able to be like, okay, I'm going to set up a target dummy with this particular amount of armor or whatever to simulate whatever boss it was. And then we're kind of like, okay, should we then have a thing where you can like select like, okay, here's a boss that it's going to be equivalent to, and then like that would be how we could to do stuff like this. And then we're kind of like, well, hang on, at some point you just got the actual boss itself, you might as well just use that. And then we're kind of like, well, like maybe the target dummy kind of then is like not kind of like it starts to lose its utility then, you know. So the whole chain of reasoning kind of came from all of that stuff. Like I do understand like where you're coming from though, if you're saying that's not good enough. But
I think you're overcomplicating it a little.
Yeah. Right. So you reckon target dummy with no stats, so then you're good?
Literally a target dummy with no stats. Like, and like if you really...
Here's the thing. He's looking at it from a point of view of like a professional PoE streamer who has 20,000 hours in the game. You have to look at it from the point of view of somebody who's brand new to the game. What value does a target dummy give that person? Pretty much nothing. If anything, it might confuse people. So for example, you have a target dummy with no resistances, no nothing, and you swing your fireball, it hits for 20k. Holy shit, I'm so strong. You go fight a boss, it's doing 4k damage per swing. Now they're confused. Wait, why is it doing so little on the boss? Like, you know, like why bring it into the first place? Who cares? It's only going to be a tool that's really useful for people who are like making guides or whatever. And those people can already do the calculations. It's not that complicated. And there's no way you should make a target dummy who can just like move the armor up or down or left and right, increase EHP, increase, like, I think it's a complex system. The less complex stuff you put in the game, the better. I think if you want to put complex systems in, they should be really fun systems where people, if they have to put thought into learning it, they're going to get a good value out of that. They're having fun. They're having a good time. I finally figured this system out. Holy crap, this is awesome. Target dummy, I mean, it's okay to have, but is it really that important? I think most people really don't care whether it's there or not. And I don't see the value. I think, if anything, there might be negative value. First of all, you're taking up space somewhere in the game for a target dummy. You can put it in your base. But damage numbers on a target dummy, like, I don't know. I don't care if they put it. I don't care if they don't. I don't think it's important at all. And I can see negatives to it as well, especially for newer people.
Like, if you don't want to overcomplicate it, you could even have two, right? One that's the equivalent of, like, let's say Shaper, right? Or literally just like one boss and one normal monster. But even if all you give us is a target dummy with no resistances and no nothing, that is like already a lot better, in my opinion.
Right.
But a lot better for who? Like, okay, so let me rephrase this because maybe I didn't phrase it well. It feels really bad to hit your target dummy for 10k and then see yourself hit a boss for 2k. That's a bad feeling. Period. And I think almost everyone in chat will agree. You feel bad hitting something for a big number and then never seeing those big numbers happen on the bosses. Can we agree on that? It makes you feel like you're not having fun because you already saw the 20k hit on the target dummy and you'll never get to like experience that on a boss. And you don't want to do anything in a game where it makes your target demographic feel bad for playing. So people like to see big numbers, correct. They like to see big chunks of HP go away, correct. If you give people a feeling of, oh my God, did you see my 20k crit? and then they never get to experience that ever again outside of the target dummy, that's a shitty feeling. Because now their new threshold baseline is, oh my god, 20k is the big hit. And now they're hitting 3k on bosses due to armor. So then you have to argue, well, now we got to make the target dummy really tanky in order for it not to crit bigger numbers than normal mobs or normal bosses. Well, now you've done that, like it's lost its purpose because you can't really compare the tankiness of the target dummy to the boss in the first place because it's a unique dummy. Well, then we can make a target dummy that's exactly like Shaper. Why Shaper? Why not a different boss? I'm not a fan.
I mean, I'm definitely like I'm actually kind of like probably fine with this, but like as I said, the main concern was that. So it's funny because like anytime you're discussing a feature like this, there's always all the questions of like, okay, so then what are people going to immediately ask for the moment we add this? And so that's how we end up down the path of like, oh, it's like going to require this or this or this or this, and then all these things. Then that suddenly the feature is killed because of like the feeling of over complexity. So I guess that's just sort of explain like how that sort of stuff occurs. For money. But
I'm down for that. If they make it something you can buy in the shop, so you're not actively giving it just to players and then making them feel bad, if they actually have to opt in for it and buy it, I'd be down for it. I think that's a cool idea.
I mean, look,
something you just put in your hideout.
If you're saying it's fine with no like with no stats at all, like maybe it's something we could consider doing. Like I'm not really opposed to it, to be honest.
Yeah, I know a lot of people on it. There is a lot of people that don't as well, but yeah, figured I would bring it up.
Right. I'm just out of interest. So to hear the case for people who don't want it, like what do you think is really the behind that? Because I mean, I've heard this argument from some GG people before, but as far as people in the community, like what do you reckon is the reason for like no target dummies?
Let's see. I'm seeing so many people say I do want it. Someone said we have POB, don't need dummy.
I'm just gonna put this elegantly. Why I think target dummies are bad. It's as follows. You first of all have to choose how much resistances a target dummy has. Let's say you give a target dummy with no resistances. So people can actually hit it, see how much they hit for. For the vast majority of casuals, this is a bad thing because it sets them up for failure and a bad feeling in game. They're gonna, let's say, throw a fireball, they're gonna hit for 20k on the target dummy. Okay. Their new baseline mentally of what feels really good is 20k. They're going to go to a boss fight and they're going to hit it with fireballs and they're going to see like 3k HP loss, right? They're going to see themselves hitting for 3-4k because obviously bosses have high resists. All of a sudden, what would have felt really good at 3k feels like crap because again, their new baseline is, oh my god, I like to hit 20ks. So for most casuals, seeing really big numbers inside their hideouts and then never seeing those numbers again outside of the hideout is a negative feeling overall. I think it makes the game less fun for those casuals. So then you would have to argue, well, we should give the dummy resists. And then the question comes down to how many resists, how much resists. Should we do one target dummy for each boss so people can have an idea of exactly how much they hit, etc., etc. For this reason, I think it's negative. Target dummy with no resists feels really bad to see numbers you can never hit in game. Target dummy with resists, now you're just complicating things because no one's going to have a consensus of how many resists they want the target dummy to have. It would only really be a very useful tool for people who are actually designing builds. It'll be a useful tool for people who are no life in Path of Exile, who are streamers, who are build makers, sure. But for the vast majority of casuals, I think not. I think my chat had a good suggestion. Basically, they said that you could make it something you buy in the store, and then you could buy one for each boss. At this point, it's an opt-in, so casual players don't even know it exists, and if they do, they can actually choose which one to buy. I'd be fine with this. I think this is okay, because then players are actively choosing to buy a target dummy. And if they don't like the fact that the number doesn't correlate to the boss, they can just buy another dummy for said boss. And if it is something you opt into by spending money, then that's okay. That's on them. All right, that's my thoughts on target dummies, and tell me if you think I'm wrong. You don't know target dummies also allow you to see if you build procs and whatnot with... I know. I just didn't want to get like into side questions.
It would feel too competitive.
Right.
Misleading number.
What if they had dummies with giga armor and resist? You see tiny numbers on dummy and then big numbers on bosses. Then what's the point of the dummy? You know? You made as much sense as I normally do. Sweet.
I'm trying to like pick.
Well, they shouldn't
like...
be misleading. So long as the target dummy actually emulates a real monster, the numbers wouldn't be misleading, right?
Yeah.
Well, which
so
monster?
Then that's the argument, therefore, and then that exact thing there is like, oh, well, that's why you have to have, that's why you have to have the ability to simulate it to a given actual enemy.
Sometimes less info is better. I don't know. It's hard to see like reasons for why not.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
The next topic is gonna be a bit of a longer one and a bit of a discussion. I want to talk about.
Yeah, but League of Legends is literally a game where no skill has any, like, all base damage depends on how much you farmed.
What the current state of portaling out.
Yeah, but people don't really use target dummies to see how much damage they do. They use target dummies to practice their skills, their movement skills, their kiting, their
Bosses
different.
is, and then talking a little bit about pausing and logging out as well.
Yeah. So basically, so you can't portal out of a boss fight. This was something that we tried for a while to make it so that you could portal out of boss fights, but with timers and stuff like that. But eventually, we're just kind of like, you know what? Why are we even trying to do this? Let's just completely ban it, and then that way we don't have to worry about like all the potential kind of like rules and weird stuff about like, oh, you stand at this location, the boss can't hit you, like random stuff like that. Like it just effectively removed a lot of potential exploits. And I think that probably was just a straight up improvement. There's been actually a few other changes we've made. Like this is something probably people will never notice, but you can no longer swap your gear in the middle of a boss fight either. That's been now disallowed too. And like a few other things like this. Like these are just things that, like, once again, people probably won't normally run into if they're not trying to do some kind of exploit, but effectively, like, we just want to make sure that, like, when you're actually in for a boss fight, you actually have like a proper experience. Like you have to actually overcome the boss without some kind of weirder forms of cheese that you might otherwise try to do.
So what happens if let's say that a hardcore player goes in, they get 60% through the fight and they realize they can't do this? What happens if they log out and wait until the next day?
So you can always log out, like resurrect at checkpoint effectively, or like log out and just wait for time. So like it's possible to get out of a boss fight, right? Like you're not locked into that forever. So that being the case, like effectively, like, if you know that you can't do it, you can get out. And this is sort of an interesting question, because I know there are people who are kind of be like, oh, it would be nice if, like, once you've decided to do something, you're kind of committed to that action. But I just think that we probably didn't want to really go down that path, because it would mean that, like, I feel like that would kind of probably feel a bit bad, I think.
Okay,
and, like, so the concern then,
so just from understanding, so from the first thing you said, I was under the
So then logout macro is a thing, period.
impression that if I go into a boss fight, let's say I'm going to fight the Shaper, right?
Yeah.
Either the Shaper dies or I die, but then that's not the case.
No, that's not the case. So you can actually, like, you can bail. That is the case. You can't portal, but you can choose to restart at checkpoint, or like log out to back. Like if you log out. Okay, so if you just Alt F4, right? What'll happen is when you log back in, you'll be in exactly the same place you were, which is like. But that's more that the feature there is more about. Like trying to make sure that you don't like lose your place when you're just playing, right? And you disconnect for a reason.
Yeah.
But if you want to choose to leave the fight, you can decide to do that. Like that is okay. And just another thing with that, by the way, is like I believe that the feature where if you lag, that the game gets paused. I believe that did get done, which means that even if you just have like internet lag, the actual server will pause while the lag is happening. So then, regardless of whether you get disconnected or not, you're not going to die during the middle of an internet lag.
Yo, that's huge. Bro, we kicking ass in hardcore today. Oh, in 3 days. What do I think about time-gated boss fights? You automatically lose if you take too long. In principle, I'm okay with it, as long as there's a good reason for that. It comes down to boss design and why you want there to be a time-gated event. It depends why you want that. WTF, that's a core PoE feature. PoE 1, if you lag, you die. What do you mean? What? Can't blame lag anymore. True. That's big for hardcore. It's huge. Yeah, I mean, I think most games that give you time-gated bosses, the reason they do it is because they're pay-to-win games, and they're forcing you to like open your wallet and swipe the card to get stronger to kill the boss faster. But you can have other reasons you want to time-gate something. It just has to be a good reason. It comes down to the reason. I'm okay with it in principle, but I think in practice, most of the time it's bad.
Spike, and I believe that it might be like 100 milliseconds or something like that. Is like basically if your client's not responding for that amount of time, then effectively the whole instance just pauses and we'll just wait until you're good before we keep going again. So that's how that works basically. But yes, you can leave.
Yeah. So could you walk me through the difference real quick? So will I have to log out and wait 15 minutes, or will it be hitting escape and then clicking like leave fight?
Yeah, so if you hit escape, there's a button there called respawn at checkpoint, and effectively that will just mean that you can, at any time you can choose to do that. Now, obviously, the concern with that, like, and we've actually discussed this quite a lot internally about, like, should that be okay? Because there was like a whole discussion with this of like, the fact that there's just a button you can do to press this kind of like would mean that like, oh, it's like even if you see like a slam coming, you'd be able to like push escape and just like push that button before it arrives. And that is the case. But the thing is, if we required you to log out and wait 15 minutes, that would kind of be lame too. Like
way worse. But so is it a question of we don't have the technology to save every save state permanently? 15 minutes is the balance point of, we only have so much resources to hold on to save states. Is that what the case is? Is that why they're doing it? Do they just not have the tech to hold 1 million plus save states forever? Are they worried like, well, if enough people just log out of their characters in the middle of something and never come back, like we're screwing over our servers? I'm guessing that's what he's saying. You change your mind on logout macro is different than what they said before it is. It's very different. This is better for the average player though, even though we lose the true 1v1 boss feeling. Your instance cost server time. I'm guessing that's what it means, yeah.
I don't really want to, like, and the counter argument to that one was like, oh, but like that's at least more friction to actually doing this. And it's like, well, yeah, but then do you really want the strategy to be that you have to log out and wait 15 minutes? Like, it's just kind of lame. So in the end, we kind of decided to do the more, I guess what I would call player-friendly thing of just like, you know, that option is there for you. You can leave if you want. So effectively, yeah,
character data is probably insignificant. It can hold pretty long. Well, I'm not, okay, so maybe it has to do with the server being ready to pop back in at any point on that save state, right? The server has to like keep working just to hold on to it, just to be able to like restart at the click of a resume button. I don't know, man, it's weird. I feel like, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of logout macros. I really don't like them.
In some sense, I suppose you could say that that's kind of equivalent to the old F4 you could do in PoE 1.
Yeah.
But, you know.
It's better because you don't have to like log back in.
It's that's kind of where we ended up anyway.
So just to confirm, this does not kill you on hardcore, right? Oh, I lost audio.
Wait, no, it doesn't. Oh, sorry, yeah, it doesn't.
Okay.
But let me just think about this because I feel like I'm just getting a memory suddenly of us talking about that as well.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that that's I'm pretty sure that that's fine. But I feel like I remember
the concern I would have there of why that would be a bad thing. And I know a lot of people are against logout macro.
Right.
Yep.
And I actually thought it would be something like a 2-second portal you'd have to cast, and then it would fully reset the fight, and you have to go again.
Right.
The reason personally I'm not a big fan of like having to commit is that you end up over farming so hard to the point where you go in and you know there's a 0% chance of you dying, right?
Right.
Like as normal shaper for now. Whereas, like, if you can die, it's a lot more fun being able to go in before you're ready. So that's awesome. I'm very, very happy with that answer.
I will mention, by the way, that there is a very old league flag. I don't know if it's exposed on the private league interface. It probably isn't, honestly. But there's a very old league flag that actually does enable a timer when you disconnect before you actually get disconnected. So if we wanted to run a league that had that functionality of where like you have to commit to everything when you do it, like because you'll stay in game, we actually could turn on a flag that would allow that. So I don't know if you ever want to run a gauntlet like that sometime, where you actually have to you have to commit to something like that. Because it is possible to turn on. Yeah. So that's something we could do.
That'd be perfect. I think that's.
I mean, look, you don't like Ziz's reasoning. I think it comes down to Ziz likes logout macros, period, because he's used to using them. And I like for me personally, it might even be better overall to have a logout macro for the average person. The reason, like, it's a selfish reason I don't like logout macros. It just doesn't fit my playstyle. Me personally, if I'm fighting a boss and I think there's a 20% chance to die, I never log out macro. It's not because of some righteous, oh my God, I'm a badass, I don't play logout macros, that's for wimps. No, it's because I'm too lazy to re-clear the map and go back to the boss. I don't want to waste like 10 minutes like rolling another map. I'm like, yeah, I'll survive, I'll make it. And then 20% of the time I die and I feel like an idiot. Whereas the smart person is like, well, yeah, there's a 2% chance I die, I'm going to log out because it's not worth losing 100 hours at 2%. On average, I'm losing more than I'm gaining. Like that's the smart player. I just don't like logging out because I don't like to lose progress. I'll even sometimes like risk a 50-50 because I don't want to lose 3 minutes of having to walk back to where I was. because my portal's too far away. That's what I do. That's how I am. So for me, for those reasons, I'd like everyone else to suffer the way I suffer when I lose my character. But I mean, yeah, that's why I prefer no logout macros, because I just never use them. I'm too lazy to use them.
That's really good for a gauntlet.
All right.
A quick question as well. In PoE 1, we have the 6-second disconnect timer. Is that accounted for with the 100 millisecond lag thing you talked about?
Okay, so effectively the 6-second disconnect timer is still like that is just like after 6 seconds of like you not being in game, then we just terminate the socket and you're gone. But because of the 100 millisecond pause thing existing now, effectively the 6-second thing doesn't like really matter anymore because it's only important for, like because the instance is frozen anyway. So all that's doing is just making it so that like look, at some point we have to give up on the fact that you're not going to actually be able to come back again. In theory, we could actually increase that time now, because like there's really no downside to it being that long or even longer, so that would give longer for the internet to recover. But I mean, I guess we just haven't kind of done one thing or the other. But the thing that's going to matter to you really is just the fact that after 100 milliseconds instances paused, you're not going to die, and how long it takes before we like actually.
So for example, Brazilian servers for PoE are kind of trash. Like at least once a day there's a disconnect minimum, probably like if I play 5 hours, I'll probably see like 2 times where the server crashes for like 30 seconds. It's bad. And I have almost never died to that. It's rare for me to be like in the wrong place at the wrong time, but still, it sucks. Because usually I play Righteous Fire, which means even if it disconnects, I'm at all times damaging things around me. So I actually have to be in the presence of a very strong enemy that can kill me through my Righteous Fire before I kill them. So I'm usually safe. It's one of the reasons I like running Righteous Fire. Because if I disconnect, I have very high block and I'm damaging AFK. You do Brazilian servers? Yeah. I have the best ping for them.
Time your whole connection out is kind of not really as relevant anymore.
Awesome. That's super cool. I can't remember in whose interview you were talking about it, but you expressed some interest in racing again and saying that that's something you considered revisiting now. But obviously,
yo, chat, would you like to see me race? I'd have to learn how to do it, but I could technically race pretty well. I have really good reaction time. I'm pretty good at learning games. We could try racing one of these days. Okay, so like I'm talking about like 2-hour races or like the really short ones. If we're talking about like first to beat all content where you have to like grind 18 hours a day, I don't have the patience for like I don't enjoy playing hyper optimally for 18 hours straight. But for like 2 hours straight, I can enjoy that.
You were cognizant of the fact that it's not necessarily what's going to like bring people back or bring revenue to the company, right? And you are a company. So I wanted to suggest, have you thought about having a specific like battle pass maybe, or even one singular item for racing and telling people, look, if there's interest, we'll bring back things like Descent, etc. based on how much it sells for. Then like the racing community can literally contribute as much or as little and as there is interest.
I think that's pretty interesting. I actually did have another idea like a long time ago.
3 days left, 3.5.
I don't know, like this is a different idea, but we'll just see. I'm just going to see what you think about it. Because we never actually did this, but it was a thing that I was interested in. And that was the idea of like effectively like pay to enter races, where it would be like, you know, like some number of cents to enter a race, and then the
winner takes all.
Effectively, I mean, it's sort of similar to the thing that you were talking about there, I guess, except that instead of being for a whole season, it was just like individual races. And that was kind of an interesting idea that I was thinking that maybe people would be interested in, but I wasn't quite sure whether the community would like that or not. Like it kind of wasn't clear to me. And so we're thinking like, oh,
people would bitch and moan and cry about it. Oh my God, pay to win game. What do you mean I have to pay to enter? Let me enter, bro. I don't know. I think there's too many people who... So there's a lot of people who consider themselves free-to-play players who still spend money, right? But they like to feel like they only spend money when they want to spend money. Like, yeah, I want to buy that stash tab. I want to buy that microtransaction. Otherwise, I'm a free-to-play player. And if you force me to ever spend money, I hate you. So I think it would just cause a lot of problems to have buy-ins for races.
Like 5 points to enter a race, and then because of the fact that the rewards, so then effectively the rewards of the race would have to be like cosmetics, right? Because obviously we can't give you rewards in the form of anything that would be player power, given that you need to pay MTX currency to enter. But effectively the like the original race awards were alt art uniques anyway, and like effectively, if we removed the actual part where you get the actual unique out of it, in theory we could do like skins and stuff like that as part of the awards. So we kind of discussed that, but I wasn't like whether I was just like very uncertain about whether the community would like hate this. So I'm kind of curious to hear your idea about what you think about it. I mean, the battle pass is similar, except that it's more of a like one-time purchase for a whole season, I assume.
Yeah, it's also I was thinking more of like even if it starts out with like a cloak that you buy that isn't like this wouldn't depend on you being able to play or not. This is like if you want to see more of this in the future. I'm more of a fan of free entry and then having a way for people to support and just being open with like if this is something you guys are interested in, this is how you can show that you're interested in it. If not,
the battle pass thing is sort of interesting because it already kind of is similar to how the racing structure was anyway, where you get points and then like at certain thresholds you get you get cosmetic. Yeah. So it actually probably does match more into it. I just mentioned the other one because it's something I thought of ages ago. I thought it would be interesting to see. But that is an interesting idea. Like the racing battle, it's actually a pretty cool idea. Like I'm interested in this for sure. Cool. The main really with that is just that the amount of bandwidth we have for making microtransactions, which is what we need to make for this, is honestly surprisingly low. Like we're so it's so ridiculous in some ways that like for a company that makes money from cosmetics that we don't have more people just working on that stuff. Yeah. We effectively need more people to be able to create more stuff like that, and it's like to already get more people for making existing cosmetics. So I guess if we had infinite resources to make that stuff, I would absolutely do something like that. I think that's pretty interesting. So it's just a question of where we get the time.
Yeah, that's fair. Awesome. It's just I'm such a big fan of racing, and I know a lot of people are, so wanted to bring that up.
It is cool.
I have a question from a community member in full caps lock. How do character names work? Is it the same as PoE1 or is it #1254 where multiple people can be the same name? So obviously like our accounts are hashtag now. Are our names still unique?
So we decided to just keep the names the same way they worked before in PoE1, for now at least. And the reason why is because so with account names, you never really have to refer to account names very much while actually typing.
Yeah.
So that we wouldn't have had to worry about all the concerns that come around having to like know people's discriminators and having to like worry about all that sort of thing. Yeah. With character names, there's a few other details. So one of them is that they expire. So you don't have the problem where the space just exists. I assume you knew that about character name expiration. Because
I thought that was just done in waves.
It's not done in waves. So effectively 1 year after the character name after the character has not been logged into, it goes into a pool of names that someone else could create if they want to. And if they then do that, then the name gets expired for you. So effectively, over time, like names will free up again. So that's the way that works. It's actually just as I said, it's just as soon as you haven't logged into a character for a year, that's when
a character or the account?
The character.
Wow. Okay.
So I believe that's how it. At least I think so. It's been a little while since I thought about this, but I'm pretty sure that that's the way that one works. And so because of that, like characters don't have quite exactly the same problem as account names do. And as I said, the character names would be more annoying because that's kind of how that's kind of how you refer to people within the league. So we kind of decided to do that. That being said, if it became like a real problem, I'm open to the idea of doing the whole discriminator on character name thing. It's just that it would mean that you'd have to then have a situation where it's like whenever you're doing a whisper, you'd have to like know, like, because you have to have like autocomplete for this, right? Like you can't have discriminate autocomplete, and then that means you have to have the whole thing of like, okay, are they in a friends list, are they in the guild, are they in your party, have they talked in chat recently, have they whispered you recently, like all of that stuff would have to go in the pool of things that you autocomplete for. And I mean, look, it's like how Discord used to be, right, when it had stuff. So there's basically just a bunch of work that you'd have to do there. And I mean, we could do that stuff if we felt like we needed to, but we're going to try without for the time being.
Cool.
I prefer without. See how that goes. Names, period.
Like if it's like a real problem, then we can always change.
It's never a problem. I mean, how many people like Asmongold literally, the first thing that happens when people log in, Asmon's taken, Asmonbald is taken, Asmonger is taken. Like, they take all of his names. He just makes a new one. Everybody knows who he is, right? So I don't really care. Like, keep the names unique. If somebody takes your name, just make a new one. Somebody took my Discord name. It is what it is. I don't care. He tried to sell it to me, by the way. The GrappLr guy tried to sell the name to me. Yeah, right. Twitch GrappLr. It is what it is.
Change it.
Another question with that are... Like, for example, I have the name Zizarin right now in PoE1. will I have that in PoE 2, or is it like fresh start from everyone, and there will be a character in PoE 1 and a character in PoE 2?
Yeah, so the characters are separated in PoE 1 and 2. The databases are just completely independent.
All right, he's not going to get Zizaran. Someone's going to get Zizaran before him.
So you'll have to race to get that one, I guess.
All right, I'm not getting that one. Cool. So a few other questions about runes. So runes, they're obviously like replacing the crafting bench, and
Sure. Yep.
in a way, and can you override them? Like, can I put in a new one over it if I want to change later?
Sure. Yes.
You can't. So that's something that.
Yo, that's holy you can't replace runes, so it's a permanent choice. That's insane.
I guess we could potentially do though. Like, I don't think I'm against it. I'd actually have to talk to
We knew that?
to Rishi and Mark about whether or not we'd want to allow that. But currently, you can't at least.
So yeah, I'm very curious about this because, from my understanding, one of the main reasons that you wanted to remove sockets from gear was that you really wanted to have this new thing where you find a gear upgrade, you don't need to 6-link it, you don't need to like get it exactly how you need it to be, you can just equip it. But I feel like I actually love the concept of runes, but I feel like a little bit about how they systematically work sort of ends up canceling this, right? Where I will not be able to actually pick up an item and, wow, this is an upgrade. I will have to fix my runes. Maybe I have to farm them.
I see what you mean, but I don't think it's the same because the thing with so a couple of things with this. One of them is that when we're talking about the whole like picking up an item and having to change stuff, what that was mostly around is the idea that okay, like socket colors and so on, right? Like it meant that you had to change like. Either you have to chromatic stuff until the point where like you've actually got exactly what you had before, or you have which is like definitely way more annoying than having to just use a couple of currency items on your on your item, right? Like chromaticking to get to the right state like could be like very difficult. But or the other thing you might have to do is to just rearrange everything in your character and like oh this goes here, that goes there. I use different supports or something like that, right? So to me that was like a much more arduous process than what this is because effectively you're going to have the currency that allows you.
I hated chromaticking. Like you would get like let's say you're running a 4 red links on your helmet, and you get a dex-based helmet that's 4 greens, and it's just better overall. Well, the fact is now you need 4 reds elsewhere. Now you gotta move all of your gear around. You gotta pull out a lot of chromatics. You gotta start moving. Like which one am I gonna? I'm not gonna 4 red the dex base because it's gonna take a million chromatics. So now I gotta find another one, and then I gotta like, oh man. It was like very often I just leave the helmet and just put it for sale. Like, screw this. I don't care about an extra 100 life. Screw it. It is what it is. Extra life drama was good. Yeah. Socket color is affected by armor base type. Yeah, basically.
You to add sockets to items. It's not hard to get that currency. Like in the early game, it's a little bit more restricted, but effectively you're definitely gonna as you go through the game, you're gonna have that currency in abundance, I would say. So I don't think it's like necessarily a problem like doing that. But sorry, I felt like you were about to say something there.
Yeah, so especially with resistances and stuff, I'm still a little bit worried about this because you don't have the ability to change that later.
I don't think you need to have that ability. I think that's fine. At the end of the day, like I think certain crafts should be permanent. So I think he's looking at this from a crafting bench point of view. Like, yeah, so these sockets that we put in are basically crafting bench equivalent. And you might as well just return crafting bench if that's what you want. I don't mind them being permanent because it's like a permanent crafting choice, right? It's like exalting. It's like, I don't know, veiling. It's you put something in there if you think it's good enough and you're happy with it. And you can still say, okay, well, now I want to change the chest piece. I can put similar runes. If I don't have those runes, I'll buy them off of trade or I'm going to farm them. I think that's fine. Why not destroy the rune when replacing with a new one? Because then it's a crafting bench. So why not just return crafting bench? It's actually even stronger crafting bench because now it's a dedicated crafting bench slot that you can't you don't need to like. So like often crafting bench is inferior to slamming, so you would often like remove the craft and slam and pray for the best. But do we want crafting bench? If the answer is no, then the rune system doesn't necessarily have to be a replacement for it, a 1-to-1 replacement. I'm okay with it being a permanent craft. I didn't expect it to be. I thought it was going to be replaceable, but I'm okay with it otherwise because, again, these are things we can trade. You want to buy a rune that gives you plus fire res, you just look for it on trade, you're going to find it, right? And they're probably not going to be that expensive. Now, if you have a piece of armor that has really expensive runes on it, like very good runes, and you find a new piece of armor, well, just buy the same runes.
So effectively,
spend the money.
In terms of fixing resistances, the sockets are more of a thing that you would be worried about early game for those kinds of stats. When I say early game, I kind of mean like during the campaign, right? Because during the campaign, you're like, okay, I've got low on this resistance. I want to get another one of those. To me, at least, I've found that it's kind of not something that I'm too worried about overall, like as I'm changing items going up, because as you're going through the campaign, you're finding new base types, you're getting new things, you're kind of constantly upgrading. And it kind of hasn't really ended up being a thing where I'm worried about that. If you equip a new item and you're like, I lack this resistance, generally speaking, I'll like, oh, okay, well, I'll add another socket or two to this, and then I'll get the resistance rune out of my stash and use that. So it's kind of ended up being a thing where like just fixing that resistance tends to be a problem that you do after deciding to upgrade anyway. So that's kind of been okay. And it's worth mentioning that with the runes, because they're kind of like, so at early game, they're more powerful than they are at late game because the values, there's only one value of each for each type.
Yeah.
So that means is that like early game, the resistances you're getting from one of these resistance runes is like extremely huge relative to the other resistance sources you would get. But as you get later into the game, the runes are less effective at solving that problem because the numbers are not stacking up compared to the mods you could get. And so as you get towards the later game, the things that you're going to be wanting to be socketing are more of the soul cores, which have the like different mods that aren't kind of designed to fix those early game problems. And also your character has more mods overall and is generally kind of like more in a good place. So it really is like, in terms of like fixing problems you have, it's more of a like, you know, first sort of 30, 40 levels kind of type deal rather than after that, if you know what I mean. So I think for that purpose, they work really, really well. As for changing them, I suppose we could allow it. I don't actually see a reason why we couldn't do that, although, as I said, I haven't talked to Mark and Rishi about it. But I guess the feeling here is that because you got to choose it, it's not quite the same as feeling like you need to be able to remove the mod that you would have from one of the random sources where we have like some random ways to get rid of it. So that was kind of the reason why we're thinking that it can go the way that it has. But as I said, I don't think there's necessarily a downside to allowing you to replace it. So maybe that is fine. I just haven't thought all through all the repercussions of that yet.
Yeah, I mean, for example, like I normally play SSF. Well, I actually have been playing a little bit more trade lately, and especially for trade, right? You could see like a perfect item you want to buy of somebody, but they've like got these like garbage runes in it. So I could see that being an issue as well.
That's a good point. I could see that being annoying. Like you put the wrong runes in something, now you can't sell it.
It's definitely like I'm trying to go into PoE too with the approach like, well, I haven't played it enough. I'll see how it is. But that is definitely something I'm very worried about, and hopefully something you'd be open to feedback.
You could theoretically even make like an expensive currency that just blasts all sockets off of an item, I guess.
Back with when we actually try it.
Right. I mean, I'm definitely always open to the feedback of that.
Yeah.
But as I said, I think from actually trying it myself, that hasn't been a problem I've run into particularly. But, you know, I guess we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. That's fair. How rare are like how rare are the rarest runes, basically?
So the runes themselves are not particularly rare. You get them fairly often. Like, I mean, you'll get, in Act 1, you'll find 4 or 5 of them probably, and then it only increases from there as you get more monster density and so on. So like you're finding them, and generally speaking, like if you're in Act 2, like maybe there'll be a rune that you want that you don't have, but then by the time you're in Act 3, I would say you probably have the runes that you need. Like they're generally available. It's really the soul cores that are the ones that are like the, you know, it's actually a struggle to find the ones you need of these, like because that's where the kind of the higher level gameplay is.
Right. And would you say there are soul cores that are at the rarity of like Eternal Orb, Divine Orb, like that type of stuff?
I don't know the actual numbers, but I would definitely think so. Like, there's definitely there are definitely hard to find ones for sure.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Next up, how does like stacking ailment works for like stacking multiple of the same?
Right. So effectively, so in general, ailments don't stack, right? In order to get the ability to stack them, there has to be some kind of mechanic you're getting.
Yep.
Usually that mechanic will have some kind of like that mechanic may have some kind of explanation for like any specific details you have to be aware of. But I guess the main thing to understand is that if you're doing something like stacking poison, the way that works is that all of the poisons that you do will always be on the monster.
Yeah.
And they're all running, But whatever, if you've got the ability to stack 2 poisons, then whatever the 2 largest poisons that you currently have that are on there, those will be the active ones. And then when one of those falls off, then the next largest will take its place effectively. So that kind of means that like that's kind of, I believe, sort of generally how the like buffs work in PoE, where you've got like, you know, whatever if you can have multiple buffs on a thing, but only one of them is active at a time. So in the case where you're allowed to have more than one, it's just effectively whatever the highest N buffs are that are on the character, that's the ones that you get effectively.
Cool. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Wait, is he saying if you have 2 poisons and a minion, only the strongest one ticks? What? Doesn't make sense. Or that was in PoE 1 specifically. Someone will have the most efficient way to craft mirror items posted by the time next week.
So
Maybe.
I don't know if there's anything else you want to know about that, but
no, not that I can think of. I think that
okay.
answers that. That's really good.
Sure, fair enough.
Another question from the community: does mana and elemental leech exist?
So mana leech is a thing, but only for attacks.
Yeah.
And elemental leech, I believe, is a thing. There are probably, I believe there are probably like various mechanics around that will give you elemental leech.
Okay.
It's definitely going to be a lot harder. But what we're trying to avoid is mana leech for spells, because that can kind of like defeat a lot of mechanics and so on.
Oh wait, so he's not giving mana leech for Archmage? Oh, like Ignite, you're saying? Yeah, that would make sense as well. Like Ignite mana leech would be insane. But yeah, Archmage just adds like it just adds damage, right? Like you can use it on attacks as well.
So effectively, that's the main thing. Everything else is fair game, but we just have to, you know, like it just depends on where it comes from. So yeah, that's kind of the basic idea.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I know a lot of people are hoping for a spell mana leech, so it's,
that's the thing we don't want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, next up, a few questions about crit actually. In PoE 1, it's almost like when you're building a crit build, you're supposed to be 100% crit. Is that the same in PoE 2?
I would say that it's kind of more like earlier PoE 1, how it used to be, where it's like you can get there with various mechanics, but I would say that it's like it may not be the most optimal thing to do, just because like the stuff you're sacrificing might be too much in order to do that. Yeah. Especially when you've got like conditional crit mechanics, getting to 100% isn't so bad, but like you're not always going to be meeting those conditions, if you know what I mean. Okay,
I see what you're saying, Silver, but then what's the point of like having 8 different poisons to be able to stack on the Pathfinder? What is the point? Like, why would you want 8 poisons to stack if they can't tick in the same time? Well, what's the purpose?
Yeah, I would say that like we've tried to kind of keep things a little bit more in line in terms of having more like, as I said, just like the controlling the sources a little bit better and kind of making sure that like getting to 100% is actually like a real, like, as I said, possible but kind of not expected. So I imagine the sort of expected crit would be a bit lower than that, and trying to increase beyond that is kind of not hugely valuable.
Okay. What's the main reason they're indifferent? Is that just to like retain player power and not let it get out of control early?
I wouldn't say that exactly. I think it's more just that like ideally every mechanic. So like I'm just I am generally in favor of the idea that like there's the decision to not increase something more is not because you run out of sources of it, but because like there's a reason that you don't want to do that, because the trade-offs are too much. And so effectively by keeping the values that you're kind of like can easily get to a sort of certain midpoint, you just avoid this, like you just sort of make it so you get that trade-off, like you have to make that trade-off towards the end of the range. So it's effectively like that. I think that's kind of really the main reason. Like, it's been a little while since I talked about this with anyone, but yeah, like that's kind of really what it came down to. We just kind of wanted to make 100% crit more of a like, this is a very unusual situation rather than this is a common situation.
Okay. And do you think part of that is as well that, at least in PoE 1, crit feels like the end game? Like, you should go crit at some point, and you kind of want to avoid that as well? Is that part of it at all?
I mean, the reason you want to go crit is because it's a massive multiplier.
Or...
well, we're certainly trying to make it so that crit is not the only build. There was actually a thing that we changed. So, so here's a random thing for you. We actually had the change for a little while where so crit modifiers, and I need to get this correct. Like there are various crit suffixes in PoE 1, and so there was this feeling that in PoE 1 that if you're a crit build, you've got like you can make your build more powerful than what non-crit builds can, because the suffixes that are available to you as a crit build are like more powerful than what the suffixes are available to you as a not crit build.
Yeah.
So because of that, we actually decided initially to move crit stuff all to be prefixes as well, to effectively compete with the other prefixes that you could get that all increase damage, right?
Yeah.
And so we did this for a while, and we actually found that like it actually made weapon rolling way less fun. Like in theory, what it was doing was making it so that, okay, you could get a crit weapon or you could get like a not crit weapon, and like they were kind of competing with each other. And like we did all the math and we're like, hey, look, now we've made it so that crit builds and non-crit builds are more in line with each other and they have the same level of power and items and so on. And we kind of thought that we'd done a good thing there. And then at some point we just realized, like, why is it the weapons just don't feel as fun to find in PoE 2 as they do in PoE 1? And then we realized that like this is actually part of the problem. So we actually reversed that decision and moved the crit stuff back to be suffixes again. And we've kind of tried to make sure that the suffix pool is actually reasonable in other ways for the other builds, like making sure that the suffixes are actually like make sense and there's powerful versions of like ideally it's like there should be there should be a level that each suffix can get to that is exciting, right? Like, and so like the question we have to ask ourselves is like, what is an amount of strength that if you got that on a as a suffix that you'd be excited about that?
Yeah.
And so effectively like we're trying to make sure that there's actually like at the high end there are suffixes that are actually really good. And so hopefully we've restored some of the like possible power that you sort of can get from weapons. And
that's a good point. Could you imagine a world where the Diablo 4 dev team changed crit to prefix and then realized it's not fun and actually changed it all the way back? Brother, the bureaucracy that would take... Never gonna happen. They're like, nope, we've already done it. No looking back. You know, go at... only forward, no steps backwards. Could you imagine them walking back on something because after testing it doesn't feel as fun? 0%.
I think that's sort of as I said, I think it's in a better place.
What does crit as a prefix mean? So you have both prefixes and suffixes. There's things that roll in your armor and items and whatever. And they're two separate categories. So you have a pool of prefixes you can hit and a pool of suffixes you can hit. And you can get 3 of each. So an endgame weapon, it has 3 suffixes, 3 prefixes. So only the suffixes can roll crit. Only the prefixes can roll like life and stuff like that, right? It's 2 categories. You can't have 6 suffixes or 6 prefixes, basically, is what happens.
I don't really remember exactly how this was related to the original question anymore, but it was just something that came up in my mind.
What are the changes being made? Nothing. They made a change, then they walked back on it. So there's no change on crit at the moment.
Does that mean that at the high end, you don't want dead suffixes? Like I remember life regen for a long time and thorns, right? Would be literally dead suffixes.
You still want to have suffixes where when you get them,
you want to change them. You don't want every suffix to be great. Otherwise, if you roll 6 tier 1s, you have a mirror item no matter what. So you still want to say, damn it, I rolled thorns. I'm going to try to annul that.
You need to have bad rolls, right? But at the same time, we did say that like, okay, whatever, when you've got the higher tier rolls, that there are actually things that like that the highest tier of something needs to be something you actually would be excited to see. Okay. And there are actually a couple of cases where the tiering system for mods, for rares, like you know how when you've got like T2, 3, 4, 5, 5 just goes up to 5, like T5 rares. If you actually get a T5 rare, it's actually possible because we haven't got some of the mods. Like light radius, for example, they don't actually have an eye level. There's no light radius mod that's higher than eye level, like 60 something, I think it is. It's probably like the highest one. It's actually possible that on the highest tier content with a tier 5 rare, that the dead mods like that are actually cut out of the mod pool completely. So it's actually possible for that to be the case. Now, tier 5 rares are like rare as hen's teeth, right? They're actually like incredibly rare. So when you get one of those, like the mods on those are going to be really good because like that the eye level of the mods you're going to get is like higher than a certain amount. I'm so excited for that. Okay, so like that means that there are just like really some really good stuff up there. But it's once again, can't remember where I was going with this, but this is like a thing that exists for the rare system. So the that can mean that some of the rares you can get at on the higher tiers can be very good.
Awesome, very cool. I'm very excited to hear that. Like items is like my favorite thing in ARPGs, so definitely looking forward to that. I want to continue asking about crit.
Mhm.
Enemy crit in Path of Exile 1 can be a little bit weird with, especially like, let's say like the Valspark from like Tynvin or whatever he's called, or
Mhm.
the Shaper Balls and stuff, because either the entire ability crits or
Mhm.
none of it.
What happened to Chris? Does he not do interviews? I don't know. He's not been doing any for PoE2 at the moment. Like it's all been Jonathan recently. There's speculation that like he's kind of like taking a step back, working more in the game, less on interviews. I also think maybe he got sick of people like shitting on him sometimes. But I do miss the hey, this is Chris Wilson from Grinding Gear Games. I miss that. He was a personality for sure.
Crits. Is enemy crit functioning similar in PoE2, or is it to the individual projectile?
So I don't think we've made any changes here, but I believe that the way that works is determinable by the designers as they're working on it. But I suspect it's one of those things that they probably don't necessarily always think about, because it's kind of pretty, it's sort of somewhat invisible, you know, like, so it's one of those things that just probably just doesn't come up in their minds. So we can control that, and I don't know whether or not. And as I said, the system works fundamentally the same as PoE1 did. I just don't know whether to what extent they've actually like used the features that allow them to control one or the other, and what situations that they would want to use one or the other.
That's so important. So for example, I'll use RuneScape as an example. You have the Ballista and you have the Darkbow. So let's say a Ballista's max hit is 70. And let's say a Darkbow's max hit is a 50. Well, Darkbow has 2 projectiles, which means it could theoretically hit 50 and 50, right? Which would be 100 damage. Wow, way more damage. But hitting 50 and 50 is so much harder than hitting 170. So hitting a 70 is 1 out of 70. Hitting 2 50s is 1 out of 2,500, right? So what this is talking about is basically if a monster shoots 50 projectiles at you and it crits, does each projectile roll like a crit chance independently, or do they roll crit chance in the same time? If they roll crit chance in the same time, the damage is massive. So you have to balance for that, right? Whereas if they roll individually, like let's say you're fighting a boss that shoots 10 projectiles and it has a 1% chance to crit. Well, if that happens, 1 out of 10 times it shoots, only 1 projectile will crit. On the other hand, if they all work in the same crit chance, 1 out of 100 times, all projectiles crit. Which means 1 out of every 100 times she shoots you, you're probably just going to die, right? Because it just deals double damage instantly. So yeah, it's important just to balance, like the designers for spells and abilities on bosses have to know how to balance crit chance, whether to do it per projectile or whether to do it for the entire ability altogether. Yeah, that's a problem in PoE1, that some bosses have a lot of projectiles. When they do crit on those projectiles, you just insta die, right? Because it's like 10 crits in a row. It's probably the case like when you're doing lab, like Izaro, when he shoots those projectiles out. What if one of them crit, they're all critting. So if you get hit like by 4 of those projectiles in a row, you're just insta wiped. You just disappear off the map. Or like abilities of shotgun, and if you're standing too close and like multi projectiles, whatever. Why do bosses even have crit? It feels bad. I don't think it feels necessarily bad. You just have to account for it. Like you can reduce crit damage on the tree. You can get protection from crit in other ways. You build against it, right? I'm okay with it. Another example is like bosses do lightning damage. The low end versus high end is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Out of interest, do you prefer the like every mechanic crits, or do you prefer just every projectile? I assume every projectile is what you'd prefer.
I'd way prefer every projectile. Obviously now I usually will end up building for crit immunity instead, and that's fine.
Right.
But I remember when I was a new player to Path of Exile, and suddenly I'd be standing next to the Valspark Exile, and it would just explode, and I'm like, what just happened? And somebody would like watch my clip, and they're like, oh yeah, he crit you, you're gone.
Right. I have a feeling that I mean, I suppose the question would be whether we should make per projectile the default option. It's one of those things that like I don't see a reason why we wouldn't. I'd have to talk to Mark about it. But
I'm pretty good,
yeah, that's probably reasonable. I think that the whole ability critting all at once is the default for some reason.
Yeah.
I think. So I'm pretty sure that if you run into that, it's because the designer forgot to add the stat that makes it so that it's just every projectile to that particular ability. So yeah, that's just kind of one of those random things. But for player skills, it's like one of those things that we really have to think very carefully about, because there are kind of reasons and not. I mean, like one of the ones that is tricky for this is Rain of Arrows. It's like should every projectile crit or should every projectile not crit? Now, because right now every projectile has its own crit roll, it means that if you use like Sniper's Mark on a monster and then you do Rain of Arrows on that monster, then you're almost guaranteed to crit it at some point just because it hits so many times. And that means that effectively the Sniper's Mark is like using it with Rain of Arrows is just like a complete win because you just incredibly likely to actually trigger that. And so then it's kind of like, well, should we make it instead so that ability is like crit, the whole ability crits or doesn't crit? But then the problem with that is that it just feels super weird. Like there's something odd about the feeling of like I do a critical Rain of Arrows and then you start to think like, should it look different so you can see that the whole Rain of Arrows is critting? Or I don't know. Like, it kind of just has some weird implications. So we kind of decided not to do it in the end. But there is a reason why we have both the abilities to do in different situations.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I'm definitely a lot less concerned about the intricate workings of how player crit works because like the monsters aren't gonna complain.
A lot of devs don't care for the player-based experience and only care about numbers. So yeah, this dev team is like a shooting star. You know what it is? GGG has yet to lose their founding, like the people who dreamed up Path of Exile, the people who made it. Like if in 30 years, like Jonathan steps down, Chris Wilson steps down, they're all gone. There's a very good chance it happens the same thing that happened with Diablo. The new fresh leadership only really cares about like how quick can they retire? How quick can they like, you know, make their 100, 200 million and get out? And like how fast can I pump up my stocks before I sell them? Like the reason you really do see a lot of passion behind Path of Exile and all the right choices being made is because it's the same group of people who made the game great in the first place. They know why the game is great, and they know what they got to keep doing to keep the game great. That's why Blizzard is trash now. Everybody who worked on World of Warcraft is gone. Right now, it's just people who are just trying to make money out of it. They don't really care if the game is good. All they care about is if the game makes money, which, funny enough, ends up making less money long term, but they don't really care about long term. It's like, how can I make the most amount of money in the next 12 months so I can get a really good bonus? They don't care if the game dies in 8 years because they're probably looking to move on to different projects in 8 years. Yeah, look at that. My performance in the last 12 months has been spectacular. We've made the company, you know, $500 million more than the company expected. Holy crap, I'm going to get a promotion. Now I can start working on a different one. I know that the game is probably going to die in 3 years because of the shit choices I made, but that's not my problem. My problem is like lining my pockets. Whereas Jonathan, Chris Wilson, etc., their goal is just to keep the game great for as long as possible. So yeah, that's what it comes down to here. Like the same people are still in the game, but it's not going to be the case probably like 30 years down the line. It just is what it is. It's business. It's a shame.
Yeah. No, it's a tricky one. Definitely would be a fun.
Well, I mean, look, I would be interested. I should talk to Mark about whether or not we should just have a policy in general. Just everything a monster does is always individual roles. Like, there might be a reason he's against that, but I'd be interested to find out.
I'm curious how you feel about bosses, especially critting at all. Personally, I'm a big fan of like everything being static, right? And like not having mods and not being necessarily variable, because like there's some abilities that like, you know, you're basically effectively mathing out what you can tank, and then.
I mean, that's going to be the case no matter what. Like, do we now say that bosses should never do electrical damage because lightning damage scales from low end to high end? I think variance is good. Otherwise, you make everything an Excel spreadsheet. I don't like excelling things. I mean, you're still going to excel it, but I think it's cool to know, like, sometimes you can get a little bit unlucky and hit for more, or sometimes not. Like, I don't like games being just insta-solved easily. I think a little bit of variance is good, as long as it's not a ridiculous amount of variance. Because you're gonna spreadsheet it anyway, whether you make things very, very flat or very variable. I think a little bit of variability is fun, as long as you have ways to counteract it. Like, for example, crit. You can be crit immune, as is said. You can get a lot of crit damage reduction. That's not a problem, and almost all characters get it. Lightning damage, you just need to realize what is their high-end lightning damage. But if you make things super predictable, then no one will ever die on any boss. It's good for some bosses to be more dangerous than others. I think that's fine.
Suddenly you get lucky with a big crit and you're like, oh, never mind. So yeah, I'm just curious how you feel about that. Like, mods and crits on bosses.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about, well, okay, so mods, I think it's nice to have mods personally. I think because I like to have situations where you've got the ability to like it gives us an access to, because what having mods does, like on maps and so on, is the ability to make it so that a boss fight can feel different from a different time you fought it, just based on what the mods were.
Sure.
So I think that stuff's important. That being said, we did like the idea of having the static bosses for the top pinnacle content, just because that is a measuring stick that players can use against each other. So having that be like a static thing is kind of nice.
Yeah.
So that's why I like the mods. As for the crits, I can see your point for sure. Like that is an interesting point. Like, should we crit at all for bosses?
Yeah, I was just curious.
I guess I just don't really have like, I honestly don't really have an argument for why they should, to be honest. I guess the main thing would be just to make sure we've got enough variance, but then the answer would be, well, why do players probably don't want the variance?
Yeah, players don't want anything. You can't just ask them. You don't ask what do players want. You ask what do players find the most excitement and enjoyment for long term. Like if you ask a player what they want, oh, give me a mirror drop every day. You know, like what the player wants is relevant. You want to talk about what the player needs to make the game fun long term, to make the game exciting long term, to make the game. I'm not even saying crit needs to be in the game. I'd be fine with the game without crit, but are you losing something? You're losing a bit of build diversity. You're choosing, well, do I want to have another 10k armor? Or do I want to have more crit immunity? Do I want to, like, this is more important. Like, what do you lose by removing crit versus what do you gain by removing crit? What's a mirror? It's the most difficult to find piece of currency. Like, you got to play like 10k hours just to find one.
So, yeah, I don't know. I find that to be interesting. It's not something that I've really thought about too much, I have to admit. Yeah, like I see your point about not wanting to have the crits for sure. So yeah, it's probably something that I'll have a chat to Mark about.
Yeah, I was just very, very curious about the answer there, because obviously, like, we can just get crit immunity, but the feeling from...
I mean, should monsters do fire damage, or should we just remove all elemental damage and remove resistances? Because why resistances is just another thing you have to like. Oh well, then like it's just the same thing. I think variety is fun. Now, some variety can be really annoying. I think like lightning damage is more annoying than crit, because lightning damage is just such a wide range of how much damage you can take. You can get ridiculously unlucky on a boss that might hit like the top range of its lightning damage multiple times in a row, and then you're just dead. But pozdravej, kako si po design.
For me, there, I said it almost makes it mandatory.
Right.
And
yeah, but so is max resist. Max resist is mandatory. That's not a bad thing. Would you argue that 75 fire, lightning, and cold res is mandatory is bad? Does that mean we should remove resistances? No. I don't think it's bad that crit immunity is pseudo-mandatory if you want to be very tanky. That's fine. Just one more thing to work on in your build, like on your defenses. One more angle.
I feel like in general, whenever something feels mandatory, like remember the cast and damage taken, Immortal Cold Days and stuff like that, like it usually gets like changed or removed.
Right.
So
I suspect that the answer against this would involve basically like it's an axis of character development that we're removing. Like that's probably the argument that would be made against it.
Yes.
So then the question is, yeah, like, but I agree with you that if something's mandatory, then it's kind of like, maybe why should it necessarily exist?
Yeah, it's a good question to ask. It is a good question to ask. Although I would say, is crit immunity mandatory? Well, immunity, no, but it's still really good to have. It comes down to the question of what is the cost of getting the crit immunity versus what can I get if I don't go for it, right? So is it worth going all the way down the tree over there to pick it up versus can I get more value out of something else? That's the only question you ask. But you ask that for a lot of things, like, is it worth getting +1 to all res? I mean, it's always worth to get +1 to all res, but is it worth the investment versus what I can get out of those same points somewhere else?
So yeah, I mean, point taken, right? Like this is an interesting one to me, and I'll talk to the guys about it.
Ziggy wrote something really cool that I like. Let me see if where'd it go? Enemy crits should be conditional buffs. You can.
I mean, I've run like just crit reduction on every hardcore character, but I don't always go for full on immunity. Immunity is great, by the way, but I don't always go for full immunity. I go for crit reduction a lot of the time as well, because it's cheaper and I don't want to invest in immunity. But yeah, crit immunity is great. No question.
see to and react to. I think that would be really cool. Like,
Right.
let's say that let's use Shaper Slam as an example, right? That if the Shaper Slam is about to crit, it like changes the animation and becomes maybe a bit slower.
Right.
That would be really
makes sense.
cool. Because that does
Right.
change the fight, but like I love that.
Yeah.
Hey, good luck in your job, man, Green. I hope it goes well. I hope you enjoy it.
That'd be way
Okay,
cooler.
well, that's interesting. Okay.
It's for me I guess for me the big thing.
I don't do Ubers almost ever solo arc in hardcore. I've done one Uber one time on like I had like a 300-400 divine righteous fire build that was like pseudo immortal, and believe it or not, I only had crit reduction on that one. I didn't have crit immunity, but he was so damn tanky that nothing could kill him anyway. So that was fine. I've only done that one Uber because I've never really built characters so damn powerful that I do Ubers. That was the one time, and again, I didn't have immunity, but it didn't matter.
Is that like they look exactly the same? You have no idea if it's gonna crit or not.
Yeah. No, I agree. And that's a very good argument. Like, it is a very good point. I'd be interested to hear if Mark has any particular reason against that. Maybe he doesn't. Like, it is a very interesting point.
Yeah. Cool. More questions about monsters. Do they still get charges? And if so, how do they work?
Interesting.
So charges don't have any inherent bonus anymore.
Yeah.
So therefore, monsters don't currently get charges. I suspect it's the kind of thing where we might come up with some interesting thing to use them for in the future. But currently, there's just no reason for them to exist. So they just don't get them.
Cool. A lot of people are curious about support characters and how they fit into Path of Exile 2 for those that want to play with their friends and make
Definitely
combos
exists.
together.
So I would say it's sort of interesting, right? Because what we don't have is the support character in the way that PoE 1 had it, where it was like just a literal kind of AFK. Well, you walk around behind them, you don't really do anything. So I would say that, like, for that, like, we still have things like that. Like, you've got scepters and stuff like that that can give people bonuses. But I would say that support characters in PoE 2 are more along the lines of, like, I'm debuffing monsters actively, or I'm setting up things that don't need to worry about the damage.
We saw the node or the keystone that any charge, like you get charges for your party, which is pretty cool. Or was that a spell? That way you can feed your party charges and they use the charges.
In order for someone else to take advantage of them, these kind of things. So, like, you can make a support character that's going to, like, ultra slow all the enemies. You can make a support character that will do things like place objects that other people can use, or for example, like, make a character that's like armor breaking lots of monsters so that other people can take advantage of that, things like that. So I'd say that, like, that's kind of the role of that kind of stuff more. But what we don't have is just like, I just reserve everything, and, like, I'm just like an aura, like just a bunch of auras on my character, and that's kind of all I'm doing. So that's the kind of thing that we don't really have in the same way.
Cool. Awesome. I think that generally answers that. Next up, a little bit of a discussion of something that was brought up in a previous podcast. I have in my notes here, talk about respecing ascendancies. I don't know if that's something you've, like, thought about or talked about more after the podcast with, I believe.
Well, this one I'm fine either way. If you choose an ascendancy and you can't respec it, I'm fine with that. I do think you should be allowed to respec the ascendancy points within the ascendancy you chose, but whether you can go to a new ascendancy or not, I'm fine with either way. I actually think I prefer not to be able to respec your ascendancy. I think if you run let's say you run a chieftain and you want to play a juggernaut, you should just make a new character and play a juggernaut, period. I do like games where making ults feels good. I like it. I have like 500 ults in RuneScape. I enjoy making new characters. And I don't like games where your one character is every character. Like, for example, I really dislike the approach of Final Fantasy where you can play every job role on your main character. Then I don't feel like my character is anything. It's just a soup of characters, and I can respec into whatever I want at a click of a button. So yeah, I like the new character approach. I actually do like, but it's not a big deal for me. Like, if you can respec your ascendancy, you're still, like, whether your warrior is a titan or a warbringer, you're still a warrior. So I'm kind of okay with it. My preference would be no, but whatever. It doesn't matter.
Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to talk more about this. But I mean, look, as I said, it's still on my mind as something that I know players are concerned about. So, like, we will definitely have another conversation about it for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's really anything else to say about it at the moment.
Perfect. All right. Yeah, that's it. I'm obviously very pro respecing Ascendancy. So
Yeah,
my
understand.
argument would
Yeah, people are already saying they're going to play Witch Hunter to respec into Gemling later down the line. I think that's annoyingly silly. Like, okay, it's not annoyingly silly. I think it's it reduces, first of all, your playtime in the game. I think there's something very fun about making a League start character and then planning on your next character once you have the farm up. Okay, so like Gemling is kind of like sucks, but once I farm enough gear, I can make my new character. Then you finally farm enough gear, and then you start your new character, and you're so excited to level it up just to get to the point where your Gemling is really strong. So I prefer that approach, but that's me. I mean, it's fine to like have a different opinion on this. Some people just don't want to level a new character. That's them. They find it more fun to just have instant access to power.
would just be it's a very early place to make a permanent decision.
Sure, I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, convenience
okay,
versus
cool. On to endgame like mapping and things like that. How much more rewarding should a difficult map mod like, you know, penetration or something like that be compared to chill ground or monster variety?
So
smart.
I believe that so it's a very different situation in PoE2 than PoE1 for this stuff because
Okay, so like this is a good question. Like, so very often like there's bad mods and good mods, and they have the same reward weight. I kind of like that because I think like if you make like chilled ground have very low rewards and penetration very high rewards, then everyone's just going to want to try to roll map for the hardest rewards, which is kind of cool in one sense, but in the same time, I feel like it should feel rewarding to roll really easy to run mods and still get good rewards. I like the idea of, okay, I rolled a map, these mods suck, I'm going to re-roll it. I'm rolling until I find easy mods. I don't know. I think I like the idea of an easy map being rewarded for rolling an easy map. Font isn't tied to mod difficulty. Yeah, but he's asking whether it should be. Oh, it is tied. But is it massively tied? Like, how much is the tying? It's not that massively. I think he's saying that it should be way more rewarding if there's high pen. I think he's saying that it should be more rewarding. Like, if you have a pen map, it should give you way more rewards. Maybe I misunderstood what he's asking. New to PoE, can you extract the cosmetic design of an existing item and use it as a cosmetic? No, you can't. Oh, wait, extract the cosmetic design. So a cosmetic, like you can have a chest cosmetic and it can apply to your character, period. But you don't extract from like existing items. There's no like transmog. You just buy the MTX itself. And then if you buy a chest MTX, you can use it on any chest, no matter what.
The rewards from difficult mods are not necessarily like the rewarding part of the map mods, because we've got the thing where the prefixes are like the rewards mods and the suffixes are the like bad mods. Yeah. It means it's kind of separated those two things out a little bit more.
Yeah.
Now there is still a thing where the harder mods have waystone drop rate increases on them, and so I believe I believe that the harder mods there do affect that, but I don't think that is like quite so much of a big deal compared to how it was in PoE1, where like the item drops were heavily changed by that stuff. So like I don't know that, like, as I said, it's a very different situation. Now it's this is one of those things that I'm like, I really hope it works, but I don't know if it will. So I guess we'll sort of have to see. Like the dynamics of what people choose to roll and how people respond to that are going to be very interesting. I guess we'll just see how that goes. But what it does mean, at least with the current way the system works, is that it doesn't matter quite so much what the like the numbers we choose for how difficult those things are relative to like the rewards they give, because as I said, the rewards being given are mostly from the prefixes anyway. So yeah, I guess that's kind of related to that.
Cool. Yeah, no, I was just curious because somebody brought up the point that I think it was penetration and monster variety had basically the same rewards, so I was curious there. So that'll be interesting to see how that changes. What about things like /letter? Is that going to be the same or different?
It's the same for now. Look, we could probably do better with this. Like, you know, it's funny because before we /ladder was a temporary cheat we added before PoE1 was released as a temporary thing before we added the ladder screen.
Ah.
and then now we're releasing PoE2 and we still haven't implemented the ladder screen. Like, it's kind of absurd how that works. But yeah, we originally intended to have an in-game ladder screen, and then I guess the website kind of had it, and then we just never got around to actually implementing UI for it. Like, so all I can say is like, okay, it's been 15 years, but we're still intending to make a ladder screen in game one day.
All right.
That's true.
So 15 years from now.
Yeah, sure. At some point we'll get around to that.
Cool. Okay, good to know. And in a similar vein, what about, would it be possible at all for the community to get a more detailed API for things like that, like ladder and like making our own tools?
So I'm curious what more you'd want out of the ladder for the API, because effectively I believe that the API we have right now just gives you a full dump of the first, like, I don't remember how many it is it like 10,000 or something people, something like that? There's like some number of people in the ladder that it gives you. And as far as I know, it gives you everything you would need to have. So yeah, what else do you want, right?
Well,
like if you want something else, so I can add it.
Yeah. Okay. Oh my God. We can get you a list. So obviously, like I'm,
Sure.
yeah, it's a long time since I started computer science, so I don't have a list in front of me. But things I can think of off the top of my head would be boss kills, for example, right? For the events we do, that is one of the biggest things we want.
Like what? Oh, so you want a ladder for when? Oh, you want like a different ladder for when people have killed a boss?
Not necessarily part of the ladder, just like an API we can access for if somebody kills a boss or something. That'd be...
So do you mean like, but so like, do you want like how many times they've killed a given boss, or do you want like have they killed the boss at all yet?
Yeah, have they killed the boss at all yet?
I think that we do have support for ladders of when people killed a boss, because like, don't we have that for certain events? I thought we did.
Only for the first person.
You have that for like challenges, right? That would probably be pretty easy to put into the API, like, because there are like challenges you have to do, and then the challenge is complete, and I'm sure you can get an API just to pull what challenges are done. So you can like make a separate like invisible challenge screen for everything, and then the API would just give what was done, what wasn't.
I believe.
It's not really ladder, yeah.
I have a feeling that the way that's implemented internally is there's just a like effectively the amount of time until you kill the given boss, like as a separate ladder effectively, and then that would mean that like you could effectively dump a ladder of that of like who was the first person to kill a given boss. So that's something we could probably do like relatively easily. I will say we haven't like thought about this for a long time. So
well, I
like,
can
it's one of those things.
I can get you like from like the guy who made PoE Racing and stuff. I can get you a list of like API things that would be huge for us. So. Obviously, I'm very involved in loving and wanting to do events.
I love Fortnite.
As I said, I think we do have actually like boss, but I'm pretty sure that what it is that like that had to be specifically implemented for each boss that we wanted to do it, because I'm pretty sure that the reason why we had that was for like the original.
It's not things I like that die. It's things I dedicate a lot of time to that die.
Race seasons we did where we sometimes had like different objectives, things like first to kill X boss. So I think it's still lurking around in there somewhere, so we might be able to like resurrect that, and like it would be pretty cool to have a ladder for like first person to kill the pinnacle encounters in PoE2 when it comes out, for example. We might be a little bit too close to be able to actually implement something like that, but like it's possible that it's just like a matter of like resurrecting some piece of code that's been sitting there and turning it on. So I'll actually look into that, because that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, is there going to be any form of like yellow text announcements for like first to level, first to new areas and stuff?
Yes, so I think that we have, so the leveling one, I think we only do it every 5 levels, at least for the first while, just because we don't want it to be like super spammy. And for first to enter area, I think that, I don't remember exactly how that was going to be. Because there was also some concern. I mean, look, there is definitely going to be stuff like that. But I think that we just wanted to try and reduce the spam a little bit in some cases. Certainly you want like first to reach level, like past level like 65 or something, you probably want like everything above that to be like every single level, I would say. Just because like, you know, that's a pretty important race and it takes a bit longer up there. So we've got stuff like that. I don't think there's any first to kill. Well, maybe there are first to kill bosses for the act bosses or something. I don't remember the exact situation, but there's definitely some of that stuff. We just wanted to make sure it didn't seem like completely incomprehensible for like a bunch of new players who are seeing all the stuff for the first time. So we just kind of wanted to limit it a little bit.
Very cool. I love to hear that. A question from my community was, are there going to be free respecs during the EA if there's a big enough change? Like right now, if there's a huge skill tree change on standard, you get like the free respec.
Yeah.
Because
so I'd say it's probably going to be the same as that effectively. Like when we do a big change, everyone will get a free respec, and it'll work that way pretty much. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Somebody was particularly concerned because if it's respecing, is it only gold, or do you have silver guy orbs? I can't remember.
No regret anymore. It's just gold.
Yeah. So the guy I was asking was, what if a big change happens and your build is bricked and you've just used your gold? You just log in, you're like, ooh.
Yeah.
Cool.
Generally speaking, yeah, it'll be that like the big patches that do the big balance stuff, we should get something. Now that being said, like I'm not going to say that every single like there will probably be patches where we nerf some particular thing, and then like that could hit certain characters like that. That'll probably happen.
Yeah.
Just because that I'm hoping not, but you never know.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that might then cause a situation where you don't have a free respec for that reason.
Yeah.
Because what we don't have the ability to do is like targetedly respec like certain builds or anything like that. Like so it's effectively all or nothing. So because of that, the like it would have to be a more global change to like, oh look, we've redone the skill tree in various ways, and then we'd probably do it.
Yeah. And I'm guessing you can't go in negative gold, right? You can't like, okay, Mr. Respec
No.
I'll pay you back later.
Wait. What do you mean you're hoping they don't have, that they make some permanent skin transfers? Every skin can be used in an infinite amount of times. You just equip it. There's no limit to how many times you can use a skin.
No.
Yeah, no debt. Cool. Another question from the community is, we've learned that ascendancies and items can be supported. So a logical follow-up is, how many sockets do those start with? Do ascendancy skills starts with 5 sockets, and do items with skills show you how many sockets they have?
So if you have stuff that's inherent to your character, so that is to say, like and ascendancy skills do count as that, or things like so for example, default attack being also a supportable skill. These things
Ooh, default attack can be supported.
get sockets based on your character level. Now I don't remember what the level is that you get. It's like late 80s. There's like, that's the one where you get 5 sockets for all of those things. But effectively, as you level
Oh shit! So you don't get a 6 link until you're 80 plus? That's pretty crazy.
up, you'll get more sockets for that stuff.
Cool.
The ones that are inherent to items, those ones get sockets based on the eye level of the item. So effectively, a higher eye level base, if that base comes with a socket, that high level eye level base will have the thing. So I don't know if the trade site will show it correctly yet or not, but it is based entirely on eye level, which you can see. The trade site needs that will probably take some time to fully be like 100% like every single thing about it looking exactly the same as in game, just because there's like a whole bunch of work there. But we definitely want to make sure the trade site at least shows you everything that you sort of need to know. So awesome. I don't know whether or not they will be showing the sockets in
Why wouldn't you want to support your default attack? Just the meme that your default attack is your main build. Why not? If you want to do, you can do it. Like, I guess if you want to conserve mana or
in skills in gear, and I have a feeling it probably won't, because I know that skills.
Like here's one example. So there's the Ascendancy, or was it a keynote, that every 2 slams is ancestrally supported. Well, let's say you don't want to use a slam because this is the one that's not, like, let's say you're playing Hammer of the Gods and your next slam is ancestrally supported. So you want to use Hammer of the Gods supported, but you still want to proc a armor break. Well, you can use your default attack, which is not a slam, to proc armor break, and then it didn't consume the ancestrally supported, and then you slam with your Hammer of the Gods. So you might want to put something on a non-slam attack that has certain supports on it that doesn't consume certain, something like that. So you might like use your default attack just to trigger some effects on the boss before you use your actual ability. So there can be some limitations like that where you might want to use your default attack with support skills.
Skills in general on the trade site are kind of like because there's like a ton of work to make them work the same as in game. I think we're just going to be showing like names and levels, so it probably won't show the sockets on the site, but you can know that effectively there's just certain eye levels that the item is that when it does that, and then later on we'll like improve support on the trade site and get everything rendering exactly the same as in game, and then that'll be fine. But there certainly should be nothing on the trade site which you can't know about something that's important for trade, at least, even to start with. Yeah.
Awesome. Quick follow-up on Ascendancy questions that a lot of people asked me to ask, regardless of the answer. Are we going to have be able to see the full Ascendancies before launch?
Good question.
Good question.
don't know whether that's in the spoiler list or not, actually. What we're not going to have is like support for it on the website, which we were planning on doing because we wanted people to like just have all that stuff there. But I think we didn't quite get time to implement all that stuff on the website to get that working. It's possible we could still get them to post the Ascendancies early. I'll have to talk to the community team and see whether or not that's planned. We can probably... We might be able to do that. Yeah, I'll talk to the community team and see what their plan is for that.
It is pretty much a 50-50, by the way.
On whether or not people want that?
Oh yeah, a lot.
But like some ascendancies are fully leaked. I feel like you should leak every ascendancy at this point. Like Witch Hunter is fully shown. Ranger is fully shown. Why are we keeping some a secret and some not?
A lot of people don't want it.
Right.
I think
we did show quite a lot about the ascendancies already. So like in some ways, it's just filling out the remaining stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the argument from people that do want it is that since it is like a hard lock thing, they want to like have a little bit of info there, and obviously most people really are appreciating that like we're going in blind, and that's pretty awesome.
Sure. Fair enough. I'll talk to the community team and see how they feel about it. So yeah, we might do it. Or might
maybe
not.
just throw up a poll and see what more people want. But yeah, another question is a low life 50%?
No, it's 35. It's actually back to how it used to. It's back to how it used to be, and the reason is because that was changed up to 50% mostly because of all the reservation related stuff in PoE 1, which is not a concern anymore. So that means low life can be 35 again, and that restores that to how it was before.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I was really curious about that. We were trying to figure out what it was. Cool. Force move, is that something that can be a keybind instead of taking up a skill slot?
So it works the same way as PoE 1. I guess that the thought with that is just like most people probably want force move on left click anyway, right?
Not necessarily.
I mean, I guess maybe not. Like I suppose we could change that, but hang on, can't you? Okay, so can't you change like? Because you know the skill binds that are like control W and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like you can control, you can change those to not be using control, right?
Yes, you can change all your keybinds. The main issue for a lot of people right now is they would like to have in the keybind settings force move to be like whether you put it on mouse button 1 or not. Right now, it's costing you a skill slot, and we're already a little bit for some builds a little bit short on that.
I would have thought that when you include the control, like they're more inconvenient, but like the control Q, control W, that kind of stuff, those ones, like, are you really using all of those as well? Because I feel like you could just use the like skill slot 10 or whatever the last one is.
Yes, this is totally right. So basically, if you want to have your left click be moved by default, that's one less skill in your skill bar that you can use. So do you really, like in Path of Exile 2, where you're kind of being forced to use more skills overall, and you can like 6-link all of your skills eventually, having one less skill, especially like, imagine Legion Geminera, whatever his name is, he has like, what, 12, 15 skills. You can't even fit them all. So losing one skill kind of sucks. So just having that as a keybind instead of a skill is a big deal.
Is like at the end there, and then use that one as your force move, and then just rebind it to something that doesn't require precision control. And then if you do that, you should be able to use that. But like, I mean, I guess there's no real reason we couldn't change it to not use a skill slot potentially. But I guess I figure that it's not usually a problem at the moment if you're able to do that.
A lot of people want that for sure.
Okay, interesting. Well, I mean, look, I'll table it with the UI guys and see if they want to do it.
I also use control quirk.
Also, pretty small sample size, but I polled the people watching on Twitch right now, and 77% are saying they do want to know. I actually thought it would be more people against.
Interesting.
Yeah, so do with that what you will.
Well, that's an interesting data point to have.
Yeah, curious. Right. I would like to hear a little bit more about towers and like buffing the maps and like
sure.
If you can talk about that a little bit, because
damn it, when I heard towers, I thought totems.
A bit before. The vibe I was getting as a player, it's felt a little bit like Synthesis like, where I would be like trying really hard to maximize my area and buffing it up. And that could maybe sound a little tedious. So yeah, I would just love to hear you talk about towers more.
Yeah, so effectively, so you unlock towers. The towers are, there's quite a few around, so you can always like, and the radius is actually quite large. And what that means is that generally speaking, the amount of things that get added, like the amount of breaches, for example, that you add when you use a breach tablet, generally speaking, you're going to be there's more in radius that could receive the breach than the number that than the number than the number that it's going to be adding.
Okay.
So for that reason, 'cause I know there was some concern, that we had initially that because you have to run maps to get to the tower in the first place, you're effectively consuming some of the maps you would have been able to use, that would have gotten buffed. And that is true, but because the radius is so large, and because the number that they'll add, of breaches it might add might be 6 or something, or 6, 7, something like that. It means that generally speaking, there'll always be more maps in the radius than there will, even ones you haven't run yet, than what you add.
Okay.
In terms of adding them to overlapping stuff, because there's overlapping towers, you can still get a situation where you want to try and maximize this.
Yeah.
But yes, you can only add one, use each tower one time. So effectively, you want to find the tower, go to it, add whatever mechanic you're adding, find some nearby towers potentially if there are nearby ones, use those as well, add them all, and then once you've done that, you get the overlapping radii for the mods, and then you run them. So effectively works like that.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, if you've got any specific questions about it, I can certainly answer them.
Can you use towers multiple times?
No, you can't. So just one time each.
Honestly, it's hard because again, I haven't played, which I love. I haven't played. I would just do you like it? Is it fun? Is it something you're confident?
He can't say he doesn't like it. He doesn't like it.
I think it's pretty fun.
Yeah,
I think it's pretty fun, but it's kind of look, it's one of those things we'll just have to see how.
Could you imagine? Oh, I mean, personally, I'm not really having a good time, but I promise you, most people will. Come on, they're selling the game.
Works in some ways.
Cool.
What we don't really know is what the long-term feel of it is, when you actually really ramp everything to max, and with but what's the steady state once you've reached the point of just grinding forever, and that I sort of have a hard time knowing. We haven't done the amount of time we need to invest to be able to really test that is more than what we have, so it's kind of hard for us to know that. But the actual just when you just play it normally, it's cool. It does work well, and I'm enjoying that.
Cool.
The hard part, as I said, the hard part to know will be once you've got infinite resources and you could just you've got as much as you do. Will it feel bad then? And I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
I'm hoping not though. There are generic tablets as well, by the way, that don't relate to a specific mechanic. And those ones add more general mods that just sort of affect all maps. So that's another thing as well, just so you know. So yeah. So we've got that too.
That's very fun.
And I am sure that we're going to be playing around a lot with the mod pools and other things like this, and sort of affecting the juicing experience is definitely something that needs a lot more actual testing to really know how far that goes and how well it works. So I'm sure that will be an area that receives heavy balance
Cool.
as we're going through. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the beauty of doing early access, I guess.
Right.
I was yesterday on a podcast called Dropped Frames. And Ko and JP asked Ezekiel to make them a question for today's podcast that I said I would ask them. And Ezekiel asked, why was it a conscious choice to make the game more difficult than PoE1?
See, I guess I don't know that I would say that the conscious choice was to make the game more difficult because that makes it sound like the goal is we're going to make it more difficult. Whereas what the goal was to make the combat more engaging. And on some level that did make the game more difficult, but I wouldn't say that was this is what we're setting out to do, if you know what I mean. It's we're setting out to make the combat good. And to me, at least, good combat involves some level of challenge. And so that's kind of what you end up with. So yeah, I guess that's kind of that's what it really comes down to. It's just that's just it's a natural part of that.
Yeah, he's very good at answering questions. He's very he puts thoughts into his answers, which a lot of people don't do. You do your mechanic on a couple of maps, then you need to unlock more areas before doing it again. Yes and no. So you put your mechanic on a tower, it influences all maps around the tower, and you discover more towers, and some towers you can overlap and put more than one mechanic in the same map. He's honest and passionate, it goes a long way. He's also really good at what he does is he listens to the question, and then I think he views that question from how, if I didn't know anything, what would I need to say to explain what this is? A lot of people, when you ask them a question, they answer in such a way that most people won't understand what they're saying because they don't have the context that they have. What's obvious to him is not obvious to us. So he's good at looking at things from other people's perspectives and really explaining them deeply. That's why he'll go on a tangent first and then answer afterwards once he gives context properly.
Cool.
I think that's really what it is.
Yeah, engaging combat. That makes sense. A cat in the community asked, will every attack from rapid fire give stacks of tailwind?
Ooh.
So it currently does.
Yes, it should.
I know there was a discussion happening about this. One of the designers was unhappy about it, and so I think that I know there was a discussion recently that I haven't heard the result of about what's going on with that. I actually can't answer what the final state will be because I don't know. It depends on what they went off and did. But there was a discussion about it for sure. It was a balanced concern. That's what I know.
Yeah. I think that's why they were curious. So I've seen a lot of theory crafting and stuff. So we have a few more Reddit questions here. I think we have a few thousand questions from Reddit. So I've just tried calling down.
Good.
This was one I found very interesting, and it was it's pretty rare to see
thanks.
someone so motivated after doing something for so long. Can you talk about what makes you so motivated?
I guess for me, I just want to make I want to actually make a game I'm happy with, and until I've actually done that, I think I won't be happy. You know what I mean? Like I just want to keep going. Like I was never fully happy with PoE 1. There was always more to do. It's always like that's just we're still not in a good place yet. I want to make that perfect action RPG. I'll just keep going until I've achieved that, right? And maybe that's impossible to like make something really truly perfect, but like I guess I'm just ultimately motivated to fix things. Like I just want everything to be perfect, and so we keep going until we get to that point, which maybe is impossible. As far as I know, that's what's driving me really.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's a great answer. I mean, it's very like talking to you as well. It's very fun. So it's great. Keep it up. Next question is does hardcore still go to softcore?
Yes. So it works the same as PoE
1. So effectively, I was thinking about actually starting softcore this time, but I could effectively just start playing on hardcore, die, and just continue on softcore then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'll do that then.
Yeah, sure. I mean, hopefully that will happen by the time you're like 3 areas in.
Okay.
But we'll see. But we'll see. We'll see.
Damn. All right. Oh wow.
No, that means all the streamers are starting hardcore. God damn it. I want it to be unique, chat. I want it to be unique. I want it to be the only one with balls. Now everyone's going hardcore. Damn it.
So like. Yeah, how hardcore rival do you think it is for your first time?
I think that would be. I think it probably would really not be hardcore viable, just because there's going to be mechanics on bosses that you're going to need to learn. That being said, look, I mean, you can with enough grinding and if you really over prepare for everything, right? You obviously can be very you can be successful. But yeah, like if you're playing at a regular pace. Bosses will kill you just due to learn the mechanics. Like there are things that are subtle about them, and you have to work them out. Or obviously you've never seen everything is very well telegraphed, but if you don't know what it's telegraphing, until you've seen the ability one time, what I would say is if you were playing behind someone and every single boss fight you watched a video of someone playing it first before you fought it in hardcore. I think you could probably do it that way. But where's the fun in that, right? You want to experience all the stuff for the first time yourself. So that I would say you can do. That's I would say play softcore your first time, or at least play hardcore and die, and then play softcore the rest, and you should be all right.
Yeah, no, I was actually bouncing between which one I should do, and then it was finally Ben that convinced me that I should play softcore because of server issues, and I think that obviously that is something we're all concerned about. So
I have a feeling if there are server issues, it probably won't be that it's lag server side on the individual on an individual instance. It's much more likely to be back-end problems, which boot off 100,000 people get booted off kind of thing.
Right.
That's kind of a different type, rather than it's just crappy performance. I would hope anyway. I mean, you never really know, but I just have a feeling it was much more likely to be those kinds of problems, the horrible back-end issue that I have to get up before at 2 a.m. to work out, rather than the just slow grind.
Yeah. How?
But, hopefully we're able to solve that issue.
How confident are you feeling?
it's hard. Apparently, not very. If I'm
Yeah.
if I'm saying like that, the issue is just like I really have no idea how many people will turn up on day one. Like we can look at supporter pack sales and we can say like, okay, well there's at least this number, but on day one, we're not sure. And the other thing as well is that there are things like what's console going to be like. I just don't know really like how many people will turn up there. It's really hard to say. It's very hard to feel confidence even though we're doing a bunch of testing and things like that, just because like, as I said, it's a new game. You never know what's going to happen. Like launches are just like notorious for like random issues, right? And it's not for lack of people trying to make sure that, like, it's not like we're like, just cheaping out on servers or something like that, right? Like we will do our best to get as much as we can, but you just never know what kind of a random performance issue can go wrong. And
to be fair, I'm probably not starting like right on launch because I'm going to be sleeping, so I'm probably going to start a few hours after launch. So I'll be fine with queues, I think.
The sucky thing about it is like you can make some really subtle mistake somewhere and it results in like a huge amount of chaos for the players because like you go over some weird threshold and you get some deadlock or some random thing happens and it just everything dies. And so that kind of stuff really sucks. I really hope we can do well. I mean, the nice thing is, at least, is that it's all based on PoE1 backend stuff. Like that's been tested to a pretty reasonable degree by this point.
Yeah.
I think we can do okay. But on the other hand, we may get more players than what our backend has ever dealt with before, and I think it's very, very likely at this point that will happen. As I said, you can never really know.
I don't know if you're like comfortable sharing a number you're prepared for, but like, are you prepared for like 1 million players, for example? If that's something you're...
well, a million is how many is what we're prepared for as far as instance capacity goes.
Okay.
We also are prepared to increase that as well, like in terms of just like talking to cloud vendors and stuff like that about like, what if we go over this? Like, do we have a plan for how we're going to scale up? Like that kind of stuff. So 1 million is the capacity that we'll have on day one, like before we know how many people we're going to get. And my hope is that that'll be enough.
Cool.
I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure we'll get it in 1 million. I don't think it's going to go. I think the chance of going above 1 million is pretty low, honestly. But you never know. You never know.
Yeah, you never know.
I think, as I said, I think the chance of going above that is pretty low. Just because bear in mind it is paid, right? It's not like okay. Let me say this on our full release when it's free. Like I think the numbers will be much higher than 1 million. I think that's going to be very, very high, like absurdly high. But for a paid early access, I think getting to 1 million would be a very good success. Like that would be crazy. But yet I think that we might be on the way to it for sure.
Yeah.
As I said, 1 million is what we're. Because of the fact that we want to make sure we don't screw this up, 1 million is what we're getting for instance capacity. When I say instance, by the way, I'm talking about the actual servers that individual players play on, as opposed to like the back end, which is like where all the, which is the scaling challenge that's much more hard to know.
Cool.
Now, as far as like testing, like testing the back end and making sure it can work, the hard part there is like, can you simulate player numbers, like correctly enough to actually know what's going on? So we've got a synthetic test that goes up to 1.6 million in the back end before it falls over, and we want to try and improve that to 2 million before we launch, just so that we like can be like okay. But the thing is that that's a synthetic test, right? Like we write a bot that simulates what a player does, but like what if we're just wrong about that? And like people, and there's all sorts of numbers that you can play around with, like how often do people change areas, and how often do people, like how many items do people pick up and not pick up, and like we don't really know the numbers for that. And we can look at PoE1 and we can kind of assume that they're similar, and we can try and kind of like get things to like some kind of real world situation, but then it'll just be some other random thing we don't even think about that like players end up doing that we just don't even that can cause the issue. So the other thing as well is like, what if we just didn't like okay, so sure, we wrote it to that many players like as a test, but there could be like even more subtle elements. Like here's a random example we did think about, but like just to sort of give you an example of the kind of subtlety that happens here. So
dude, he's so good at talking that I have literally nothing to add. I've been silent for like 3 minutes just listening to the guy talk. He covers every aspect. Like I'm coming up with like things to think about, and he's just answering them as he goes along.
We have processes in the backend called instance managers, which like deal with like effectively they just like know where all the instances are, like all the game instances are, and like if they fall over, like if they keeping track of them effectively. And we've got more than one of these, but like to know which one to contact, you need to know, like, you need to have something to work out like what.
No, there's definitely things that can crash servers. For example, they fixed it, but I heard that, so the monk can drop a bell, and when you hit the bell attacks things around it. So you could have two monks in a group, they just drop their bells next to each other, and the one bell activates the other bell, and it goes brrrr. So you imagine, you get like 6 monks in a party, they drop 6 bells, and they just hit all 6 bells. Just that one group alone is just like creating havoc for the servers to figure out what the hell to do now, right? And then you do that, and like, you know, there's things that can crash it. There's definitely things they might not expect. Yo, thank you, Fugat, for the follow.
What is the thing that like that will tell you like which instance manager I should be
I mean, Elon pretty much already said he's playing the game.
talking to whenever I'm going to go to a new area, and so that we shard this based on the area, the area index. And the thing that we realized recently was that like when everyone plays the game initially, they're all going to be in the same area. They're all going to be starting in what's called G11, which is like the first area of the game. And then a bunch of those people, like there'll be a very similar amount of time that people will take to get from there to the next area.
Yeah.
And so that means that everyone will go from there to like the next area. And so that means like all the load's going to be on one of these instance managers, and then all the load's going to move to a different instance manager. If it's all going to happen at the same time, which means there's actually like the thing with having more of these is like completely defeated by just the way that will happen on launch. And like that's not something that our load test would immediately notice, because like we kind of have to think about how the actual players will actually be behaving on release day to be able to see that kind of issue. So like that's one we did think of, but like there could be 200 other things like that we didn't think of that like, you know, could result in problems. And so this is the kind of stuff that like, you know, as I said, that you just never expect on the back end. So this is probably like way too much detail, and like I'm being way too
I love the
here,
transparency. It's really great.
But okay, but anyway, as I said, that's the kind of issue. So I'm hoping that whatever it is like really obvious, like whatever problem we do run into is like really obvious to us, so we can just fix it. But it's because the part that really sucks is like the thing fell over, like there's no crash, there's no like thing, it's just a bunch of people got disconnected, there's no logs, there's nothing for us to even latch onto it. That's like the really horrible type of issue that I really hope we don't run into. You know, you never know. We'll see what happens. I'm hoping it will be okay.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, you could just do a surprise launch right now. Then there won't be like no one's expecting it. You just
well, there was somehow I don't think that's a good idea. So, I guess what will be really interesting to see is how big do the queues get on. Like yeah, that could be scary. But I think it'll be okay. I think it'll be okay.
I'm excited. I'm very hyped. Awesome. Thank you so much for the transparency there. That was more in depth than I was expecting, and yeah, love it. A question about ExileCon. Are there going to be more ExileCons? Will there be one before or after release? Like, what's the vibe there?
So we were actually originally planning to have one next year. And as it got closer, we were just like, man, do we really want to? Are we really, really wanting to be having to deal with another ExileCon this close? Like it's like, you know, we're pretty tired right now.
It's a lot of work.
I don't know if I can actually. It's a lot of work, and it is like a huge amount of work. So we're kind of like, you know what, we're not going to do one in 2025. So we'll think about the year after that. But we were, as I said, we actually originally like had made a booking and everything of like the venue, and we're actually keen. But then when we really looked at it, we were like, I worry that we're going to be like close to like like if we're like really close to the release at that point when that would have been scheduled, that could just be really like too much load on our studio all at one time, because running an ExileCon really is like, it is a crazy amount of work for the whole studio. Like it's just a huge amount of stuff. So I am almost certain we'll have another one. I just don't think we're just not gonna have one next year, just because it's gonna be too much going on, I think, for our studio. Because you know, it's really fun to run them, like even though it's all that work, like it is really fun to run them, and like having all the community there, like it's a really fun thing. And like if we had infinite resources, then having ExileCon right before the full release would be like the most amazing marketing opportunity, right? Like that would be great. But then the idea of having to do all of that and also get the release out at the same time, it's just too much. I just don't think we'd be able to do it.
That makes sense. It's a lot
I
of
might
work.
look at that. Right.
Question again about bosses. Is every single boss going to be you die once and it's over? Like, you know, you collect 300 Zesh Duelist splinters or whatever?
Right. So we've actually had quite a lot of conversations about this topic. With the 300 splinters thing, just to...
What's the point if you can just play in softcore? Well, you go to a different league. So now you're playing in a softcore league. Like when I play hardcore, if I do my hardcore, I still want to play, you know, I want to be part of the same global chat. Like if I'm playing hardcore, I'm comparing myself to the people on my servers, right? And that's why I play hardcore. Yeah, I can continue playing my character in softcore, but now I'm on a different rule set. Like it's a different game for me. For me personally, if I wipe on hardcore, I never go on softcore to play it afterwards because it's not the same game. It's a different game. I can continue playing with the same character, but the game is different. There are new rules, right? Like, I don't know if that explains it really well, but that's how I view it. Secondly, this is only going to be the case for early access. Once they start doing leagues, your hardcore characters will not go to the league softcore. They're going to go to the softcore. So what you have is the base game, hardcore, softcore. Then you have the first league. If you rip in hardcore, you get sent to hardcore base.
Yo, hop.
That happens for every league, right?
24-hour stream on release day or what?
I don't know, Jonathan. I'll definitely play a lot on release, but I don't know how long. I doubt 24 hours. So yeah, this is only the case for the base game. The moment we have the first season, that's going to change. You're not going to go from hardcore to softcore. You're going to go from hardcore season 1 to base softcore. Not from hardcore season 1 to softcore season 1. So that's not going to be a thing in the future.
By the way, it's like they do come in stacks, so it's not like you have to fight 300 breaches to do that. But this was definitely a question. Should we allow more portals for...
I look like Antonio Banderas in Desperado. Gracias.
For some of these bosses because, like, you know, it's like the first time that you save up, the first time you're going to fight it, and then you just die instantly to some ability, and, like, is that okay? And
thanks, Albert.
There were definitely some arguments about this. But we eventually decided that, we are going to leave it as one death for those bosses just because...
just for now.
We just want to make sure that there's integrity in the, you know, like in the boss fight, that you actually, like, did actually have to kill it from top to bottom. It is one of those things, though, that, like, if it really was a problem, I guess we could readdress it. But, like, I think we're pretty keen to go with just one death, even for those for the time being.
Cool.
I'm okay with that. Again, if you can't beat the boss in one run, well, get better gear, grind up more. Not everybody should be able to do every piece of content. If some bosses are very hard to do and you'll most likely fail, well, that's okay. Do either get better gear, get better at the game, or do something you're not going to fail at. This is the case even now. Yeah, you have multiple portals for Uber Maven, but how many people actually manage to do Uber Maven with all the portals? Very few, right? Even on softcore, it doesn't matter. It's just a question of what content can you do consistently, what you can't. And if you want to do harder content, either get better at the game or get better gear. Or both.
But yes,
very interesting.
There was a lot of argument about it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like I'm gonna be hardcore hopefully most of the time. So once I figure the game out, so I was just mostly asking for softcore players. I'll be very curious how they feel about it. Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay, another question. How do you feel about safe mechanics like Toda? Like, obviously, RuneScape is probably the game that comes to mind where you can very, very much, more than any game I can think of, tailor exactly what type of content you want to be doing, right? Like, if you want to, you can do completely safe content, or you can focus on, like, a really hard boss fight where it takes all of your focus. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on, like, being able to tailor your custom content?
So, I mean, I would say that PoE is pretty strong in this regard as well, right? Like, you've got the ability to change the degree to which, like, how many mods you put on maps, and then, like, how much you're juicing things with mechanics for the towers, and, like, all sorts of stuff like that. So I would say that PoE is one of the games where you do actually have quite a lot of control. So, like, you can definitely get, like, look, if you're running a white map, there's not a huge amount that's just going to randomly kill you. If you're powerful enough to deal with that, you should be okay. It really is the other the extra difficulty you add that makes it so that you're so that you're more safe. And, like, especially now that the bosses have been moved out of the regular map so that you can choose whether you're doing them or not. Like, you have even that choice as well. So yeah, I'm a fan of tailoring content difficulty, and that is the goal for us as well, right? Just like make sure that you can decide that. Awesome.
Yeah, no, me too. I'm a big fan of that. Very cool. So talking about playing hardcore and pausing and stuff. So let's say that I've opened an expensive boss fight. It took me a while to farm, and I'm halfway through the fight, and I'm like, oh, this is not going well. This is not going down well. But I don't want to leave either. can I pause the
Right.
fight and be like, Steel Mage, I need help right now. Please come get me. And can he then like, while I'm
So-
paused, can he come help me?
So
Good question.
okay, so currently you actually can't like do things like accept invites and everything while you're paused.
Okay.
Now we actually had planned to allow you to do way more stuff while paused.
Yeah.
There was this whole pause rework we were going to
What's the size? Over 100 giga, supposedly.
do. We were going to change the interface. You can pause the game and still be able to like look at the rest of the interface and like kind of do certain things while paused or not. And then we could just make the decision of like what's allowed when paused and what isn't.
Yeah.
But we never got it. We unfortunately didn't get time to do it. So right now, you wouldn't be able to accept a challenge while paused. But that being said, you could like pause the game, message your friend, he sends you an invite, you unpause quickly, click accept, and then pause again. Right? Like it is kind of possible.
Right.
And so there's kind of really no reason to like not allow you to accept an invite while paused for that reason, because like you can just kind of do that. Like that would be possible.
Cool.
And ultimately, that would mean that you can kind of do that. The question then is like, can you get to the person in a fight? And that depends on the context.
Yeah.
Now, I don't actually know 100% of all the rules about this, about exactly what goes on. I believe that when you seashell to someone, as the players call it, that you go to the checkpoint of the last, you go to the physical location of the most recent checkpoint the player has.
Yeah.
And then from there, you can go into the boss fight. So during campaign, you can certainly just like get into someone's boss fight very easily.
Yeah.
What I don't know is what the situation is with regard to maps and exactly how that works. So I would have to check on that to work out exactly what you could do there. I am sure there's going to be all sorts of like exploits and like random issues around pausing and checkpoints as well, and like all of those things. Like I just have a feeling that there's going to be stuff. Like we obviously do our best to think of these, but I'm sure there's going to be some stuff. So there might have to be some tweaks to the rules later on here. But as far as I know, you can do that. I believe. So I'm pretty sure what should happen is, I think that for maps, the last checkpoint is like still in the map room.
Yeah.
Because there's no checkpoints in map. So I'm pretty sure what would happen is they'd go outside the map. They would be standing where the portals are. And if there's a portal available, they'll be able to go through that portal. And so if you moved the portal close to the boss fight before you went into it, because you can't use the portal while in the boss fight, then that would mean they'd be outside the boss fight. And so long as there's a way to get into the boss fight after the fact, it should work. So as far as I know, that should be how it works at the moment. But as I said, there might be individual rules that we can add or remove or whatever. Like there'll probably be tweaks to this, I'm sure.
Cool. Also, chat really wants me to correct you and say it's we call it swirly.
What? Okay.
Yeah,
For some reason, people around here call them seashelling.
Right.
I don't know where that. Maybe that's just in GGG slang for this.
You excited me
That's
too.
Okay. I mean,
it apparently looks like a seashell.
that is really cool though. I'm obviously a little bit biased. Like I would love to run like a boss service where I'm like coming to rescue people. So that'd be very fun.
Well, as far as I know, that should be possible right now. But as I said, we might tweak the rules.
Thank you, friend.
Po2 will be a crazy good time, man. Looking forward to your streams already.
Me too, brother. Me too. I'm looking forward to kicking ass in hardcore and doing a deathless run all the way to maps. People say I can't do it. Well, watch me. No deaths. First try hardcore to maps. I'm excited too. Yeah, we're talking about the 3 seashells. Great system.
Cool. A little bit of like a more random cutesy question with how do you feel about like mini games like fishing or just like things to do that aren't necessarily like the core game?
Fishing.
I don't know. Like, some people find that stuff fun. I guess I see the mini games in PoE as more like the different league mechanics. So like those are the things that we're probably more likely to add. But I know people have been wanting a fishing mini game for a long time. I guess we have boat support now, right? Like
I know.
from the hideout. so you never know, I guess.
Cool. Two-factor authentication, is that something we can see improvements of in PoE 2?
So this is one of those things where like it's trivially easy to add two-factor authentication. The hard part is all the support policy around what happens when people lose their second factor. And it's like Like, okay, so like, how do you verify someone who's lost the second factor? And then like, that's a whole thing that's all drama around this. And then like, you open yourself up to like all sorts of like support mistakes you could be making when with that kind of stuff.
True.
And like, it's notoriously like you have said this thing. And then people say, oh, you should just tell people that if they had two factor, then if they do the second factor, they're just hosed. And it's like, well, you can say that now.
Yeah.
You say that right up to the point you do lose your second factor, and then you're like, why is there no recovery process for this? You know what I mean? Like, there has to be a recovery process. And then it's like, okay, so then how do we verify it? So then people are like, oh, you could like take government ID, and it's like, okay, well now there's like GDPR and privacy implications of this, and it's just kind of an endless rabbit hole of like random policy and horrible stuff. And so like, we should have it, right? Like, absolutely, we should 100%. We should have two-factor. We just don't, and it's all because of that, like the tricky stuff around this. And like one day, I just have no doubt we will implement this. But yeah, it's we just need to dig ourselves out of the hole of all the policy issues. With
Just do what RuneScape does with back in the day, at least, like with the bank pin. It's perfect. Have a unique 6-digit code if you want to have it that you memorize, that you use to log in. And if you forgot your code, you can ask to reset it, but you're locked out of your account for like a week while it resets. You can ask to you get sent an email for the reset link, and then you gotta wait a week for it to reset or whatever, something like that. I don't know. I mean, he makes sense. Two-factor authentication is cool, but it's like, for example, I lost my two-factor authentication when I swapped phones. Because funny enough, even though I had like an iPhone to iPhone, I transferred it. It didn't actually transfer the authentication because when I tried to use it, I couldn't use it. And then I had to, thank God I still had my old phone. So I went into the phone and actually transferred properly. But it is easy to lose. And some of those codes are really hard to get back. So would it be weird not to have it in PoE2? I mean, I'm all for it. More options, the better. I can see the headache, though, from his perspective, why it's just annoying to have. Because you have to open up a lot more, you have to be a lot more, because like, the more things there are in security, the more ways people can like social engineer their way through it. Like, you have to set up a very good customer support system, and you have to have a lot of new policies to make sure nobody can take advantage of the new system. It's just a headache to set up. But once you have it set up and running well, and if you have a good system, it's good to add. I just sympathize with the fact that it's annoying to set up.
Around support for this, that's the thing.
Yeah, you
and
can
so
just use
what
Steam's
I will say
one.
though, is just as a thing, is that you
Keep in mind that Path of Exile also has its own launcher, right? It's not just Steam.
You can effectively outsource the two-factor on your account by using Steam if you want, because they have two-factor. And if Steam is the only login method on your account, then effectively you're just relying on their two-factor to be able to work. So you still have that option at least. Right. But yeah, we should add two-factor to the regular login system, and I want to add two-factor to the regular login system. It's just a question of getting time to sort through all the problems with it.
Speaking of regular login system, I
More
can't remember if this
follow,
was
man.
already confirmed, but do we still have both the standalone client and Steam?
Yep.
Okay.
We do.
Excellent. Another community question. So there is a limit of support gems, right? I can only use element control destruction on one gem. I can't use it on two gems.
Correct.
Is that rule still the same on my weapon swap? Let's say that I have a lightning ability in one weapon swap and a cold ability in the other, but on both of these main gems, I want to use control destruction.
I'm pretty sure the rule is not that I'm... Oh, actually, wait, that's a good question. Because when does the rule get implemented? I think you actually can't have it in both.
So there's one per character. It doesn't relate to weapon swap. The thing that I just want to clarify around this is that like it's not like you've got slots that are just like one versus the other, right? Like when you look at your skill screen, they're all just on one screen.
Yeah.
That you just get to enable or disable certain skills for being used by a certain weapon swap. So there's no as far as the question goes, like it is one for the entire character.
Okay. When we saw like videos, somebody had a video going through the settings and stuff like that, and I did not see lockstep or predictive being there. Is that still a thing?
Lockstep is great if you have a good ping.
Why wouldn't it have been there?
Apparently it's only on the menu screen.
Oh, yeah.
What is lockstep? Like, from my understanding, lockstep is your character doesn't move until the server tells it it's moved. So you're moving one-to-one, whereas predictive is, if you have bad ping, you click forward and kind of like you move even before the server verifies you move there because it predicts that the server is going to allow it. So you can have some rubber banding from predictive if like you move somewhere and the server says, nah, you can't do that, come back, you know? Whereas lockstep, you'll never have rubber banding because you click to move, And the move, like that's my understanding at least of it. I could be entirely wrong here. That's just how I understand it. So you know what? You can only use lockstep if you have very good ping. Otherwise, you'll like feel delay and stuff. Yeah. So if you have like good ping, I'd say if you have like under like 50-40 ms, lockstep is great. But if you have like 200 ms, predictive is what you need. No, I love lockstep. I have 0 issues because my ping is like 20 or something. It's awesome. It just feels perfect.
Yeah. It's because you can't change it while you're in your while you're in game. But yeah, it should be there. As far as I know. One thing I will say is that predictive with WSD. Sorry, not predict. Okay, let me get this right. Okay, so there is a mode called hybrid. And I think that with WSD, predictive turns into hybrid, but I'm not sure whether or not they've actually like fiddled around with the interface of this. Hybrid is the mode that consoles use, but I don't think it tells you about it because I don't think there's a setting for it on consoles. Right. But effectively, what that is, it's like it's somewhere in between predictive and lockstep. I guess I could like, and effectively what it is that. This is kind of irrelevant, but effectively, with lockstep, when there's lag, internet lag, the whole game freezes. And with predictive, when there's internet lag, the game does not freeze. Hybrid is a mode where we still use predictive networking, but we still freeze everything when the server hasn't replied to you, and that's just because it keeps everything sync a little bit better, but prevents some of the issues that you get in predictive. And that mode just works a bit better when you're using direct control WSD versus and stuff without causing too many desync issues. So that's just a.
Bro, I'm never gonna die in PoE2. I'm not gonna die, chat. I'm not gonna die to lag ever again. You know how many times I've died to lag because the servers go down or like, oh my god. The game pausing every time you don't get a response in 100 milliseconds is insane. That is so good. Chat, I'm immortal. The one thing that killed me most, lag, no longer exists. It's so good, I'm never gonna die.
Random detail there, but yeah, as far as I know, they still work, and they should be fine. What I worry about. And this is just random speculation on my part, is that like pretty much everyone in GGG plays in lockstep.
Yeah.
What am I going to blame if I die, if not lag? Obviously, if you guys like talk to me, chat, and I have to look towards the chat, I might die to something on screen. Like it might be your guys' fault if I die, or maybe I'll die to a bug. That's it.
And so what that means is that like. I worry that there won't be as much testing in predictive, and there could be like issues that happen in predictive that we're just not aware of because of the fact that like everyone's just playing in lockstep all the time. So it probably hasn't received the same testing as what what lockstep gets.
What's my starter class? I'm going to be playing probably warrior and go gigatank with totems.
So I would suggest to you play in lockstep if you can. Obviously, the issue is when your high latency is high. But that's the sort of stuff that will be that I'm sure we'll get more testing as we go into early access as well.
Speaking of like really having low ping, you guys know when Joe Rogan was a young guy, he used to play a lot of Quake, and he used to like really no life Quake. And from what I recall, he actually he had a dedicated cable that he paid for to be sent all the way from his ISP towards his house, so you can have the best ping possible. Could you imagine? Like, he asked for a dedicated cable from his ISP to him. He was, if I remember correctly, wasn't he paying like $10,000 a month or something crazy like that? I don't know what the number was, but it was something absolutely insane. Or maybe it was a one-time payment, I don't know. But he paid a lot of money to have a dedicated cable from his ISP to his place, so that he never has anything like loss of internet or whatever, just perfect internet. Just to play Quake, yeah. Definitely wasn't 10K a month. I don't know what it was. You can look up the number. I remember the number 10K for something. Maybe it was just a 10K one-time payment to install it. That could be the thing as well. But I remember something, when I heard the number, I was like, that's insane. Also, that's also the reason why he doesn't play games, he says. Because he says he gets so addicted to games, he can't stop playing. So, Joe Rogan, when he was young. Like, Joe Rogan back when he had hair.
But
back in the day.
A question I just thought of was in PoE1, a thing that can happen is assets loading.
No, not cable from his router to him. Cable, like literally cable from his ISP provider all the way to his apartment. Your ISP offers it for 1.2K US dollars a month. So it might have been 10K, because that was like what? Like, when did Joe Rogan have hair? Like 20 plus years ago.
Being invisible? if there were already loading ones. Is that a fixed thing in PoE 2?
Unfortunately, that's not fixed, and this is something that really, really bothers me. But look, it's something that we're going to be like we.
Elon could buy his provider and play there, brother. What, brother? Elon literally made his own provider and sent I don't know how many thousand satellites into space to have his own internet. What do you mean buy? He doesn't need to buy. He makes his own. He makes his own internet.
I really want to fix that. I really, really want to fix it. Like it's the worst thing to me is that occurring. So we'll get to the point where that can occur. It's actually occurring. So I want to fix it. Look,
I just thought of was in PoE 1 a thing that can happen is assets loading and being invisible if there were already loading ones. Is that a fixed thing in PoE 2?
Unfortunately, that's not fixed, and this is something that really, really bothers me. But look, it's something that we're going to be like I really want to fix that. I really, really want to fix it. Like it's the worst thing to me is that occurring. So we'll get to the point where that can occur. It's actually been made.
So any info you look up about it says he did pay 10K a month for the internet. There you go, non-believers. Look at that. Memory of an elefante. Ha! Perfect memory. There it is, 10K a month.
Harder in PoE 2 because
Get wrecked,
the fact
non-believers.
the assets are larger in general, you know, like higher resolution textures and higher resolution like models and stuff like that. So I don't think it will necessarily be worse or anything, but yeah, it really sucks to me whenever a thing doesn't load. And so this is a thing that we will be working on and improving over time. I want to get to the...
Thank you for the follow there, Master Rekos. Imagine being me, never being wrong, chat. Oh. Always correct, never doubt. Do you still ride your motorcycle? I got a Triumph Street Cup and I'm loving it. Yes, I do. I ride it to the gym every day. Tool? Yeah, but I'm like a good tool, like a hammer. You know, I'm useful.
The point where it's just 100% the case that you never see an asset pop, like that would be ideal.
Nails hate this one trick.
Yeah. But we'll work towards that. But we aren't there yet.
Cool. A lot of people are asking about pre-download, especially for people with slow connections, being able to start.
Any info about the release officially of PoE 2? Yeah, they said they're looking to release it officially anywhere between 6 months and 1 year after the early access starts. They said that is their timeline.
Downloading the files before the 6th?
So the concern there would be
data mining.
What do you call it? Data mining.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's the concern with that.
My question is pre-download / data mining.
Yeah. I'll like we're definitely more vulnerable to data mining for PoE 2 than we are in PoE 1 usually, just because you know, like there's so much more new stuff, like just the whole campaign being something people haven't played. You know, so like it's that would be the concern. I guess I do understand the why you'd want this though. I guess I'll just have to talk to. I just have to talk and see how we feel about it. Like, yeah, the concern is data mining though. That would be the reason not to do it. That would be that's really the issue.
I'm a big fan of like that it hasn't been data mined yet. At least I love that.
Right. It will be interesting to see how fast the data mining occurs. Like, obviously, when you've got a thing like this, like a lot of people. Now, we do have some stuff to improve. Like certain things will be harder to data mine than they were in the past. But on the other hand, there are some things the client just has to have, and if the client has to have it, then there's just no way to prevent data mining of it because, like, you know, it has to be on the client.
Well, I mean, you could preload like 99% of the game and have a lot of the things that are data mineable like just slightly encrypted, and then you do like a 100 megabyte patch that unencrypts those things, right? Like you could do that, but like I guess it takes some prep time to actually set it up that way, but that's something you can do.
For the client to be to be able to see a mod on the client has to have the text of the mod, right? Yeah. So on some level, you've got to have that stuff.
That'd be hard AF to do, yeah, probably. I mean, so I'm not a programmer, I'm not a dev, I have no idea. So I'm talking bullshit here, but in my mind, if you set everything up in a way from the beginning, you know you're doing that. You just do that for the important stuff. It could probably be pretty streamlined, I guess. Then again, I'm just talking bullshit.
See.
Cool. Makes sense. Is rarity multiplicative or additive with map / monster
multiplicative.
rarity?
You mean so player rarity is player rarity is multiplicative with the map rarity, yeah.
Okay.
So that's still the case.
Right. Yeah. A question about what leagues are, because obviously we are still going to have leagues in PoE 2. What are they going to be based around? Right now they're being inspired by other games. Is that still going to be the case?
Oh, I mean, that's always the case, right? We're always looking at other mechanics. I mean, ultimately, it comes down to what is cool. And so that means that all we're really doing when we're looking at other games is like, is there something we can notice here that could inspire us to be cool? But like, it doesn't have to be another game. It could be a movie or like just some random other thing. Like, you never know where the inspiration is going to come from. But that stuff can definitely happen. Just, can we come up with a cool mechanic? That's all it comes down to.
Yeah. Is there any game off the top of your head that you're like, oh, do we really want to find a way to get this in PoE that inspires you?
What game would you guys want in PoE chat as a league mechanic? Give me a game. What would be fun? I'm trying to think. I don't think you can fit RuneScape mechanics into PoE. TFT, we've already had it though. Tibia, no max level. That would be interesting. Dota. Yo, what about a league where you actually play MOBA? That's kind of weird, because you have to make it multiplayer and you have to have 10 people, but you could do like a 3 versus 3, because they have support for up to 6 people, right? Imagine they make MOBAs. That would be weird, man. Like a PvP league. A Battle Royale. Keep us fishing. A Heroes of Might and Magic. I think Battle Royale you can't do, because Path of Exile is not programmed to have 30 people on the same map. It's like 6, right? So you have to make it really small. But you could do a MOBA for sure. Minecraft? I don't know. I have no idea. They already did a Battle Royale. Wait, I remember that. That's right. Because you only load the player. I played that. You're right. I did play that. Yeah. I remember now. It was really cool, actually. Huh. So they do have the tech. That's a good point. Vampire Survivor just hordes and hordes of monsters. That was pretty cool, too. Yo, dude, that would be so cool. A Vampire Survivors where you get random upgrades to upgrade your character nonstop. That would be really fun. And the further you go, the better reward you get. And you can make it not infinite, but like 40 waves, and very few people can hit 40 waves. That'd be very fun for softcore because you die, and it'd be very fun for hardcore because you pussy out and run away, right? So it would be like, basically, what is the mode called? The one you already have for that, where you add more and more layers, but it's in a very small circle. Cast on Sun's really good for it. For example, Ultimatum, like Ultimatum but better, where instead of getting downsides every wave, you get upsides every wave, but the monsters are significantly stronger. So you start off getting stronger and stronger, but then the monsters start outscaling your strongness. I think that'd be really cool, like a reverse Ultimatum. I'd be super into that.
I don't know that I can name one right now. If it's like anything that would have happened like that, we probably already made a league for it.
Yeah.
So it would have to be something recent, and we haven't been talking about leagues in PoE 2 yet, so we haven't.
What about a mode you have to use the bathroom every hour? I actually have to use the bathroom, but don't worry, you can time me if you want. 46 seconds today. That's my prediction.
Had like a brainstorming session about that yet.
Yeah.
So yeah, as I said, I don't think I can come up with one at the moment.
Awesome. And
50, get out of here. That was not 50, dude. 46 on the dot.
And it's pretty much the final question here. I kind of tried to avoid open-ended questions, but is there any particular large engine changes with PoE 2 that allows you to do something that you've always wanted to do in PoE 1, but you weren't able to?
You don't know how you can speedrun P like that? All right, listen, I'm gonna give you some secret speedrun strats here. First of all, you start flushing 2 seconds before you finish. Now you have to have a very good feel for this, but you start the flush right before you finish, right? And then the flush still hasn't spiraled all the way down, but you're kind of like, that's a min-max. Second of all, you only wash one hand, not two. It's twice as fast because you only need to wash one, right? Because unless you're carrying a fireman hose, you got to use both hands. Like, it doesn't make sense. That's number 2. Number 3, you pull down your pants before you make it to the toilet seat. So I've already got it in my hand before I'm there. That's like you shave a second off, right? Like, there's a lot of strats. It comes down to practice, basically.
So most of the changes, like engine-wise, are actually on PoE1's engine because we wanted to merge them so that we can make all the assets transfer.
Yeah.
Probably one of the largest changes that is different between PoE1 and 2 is the global elimination system. And what that kind of means is that so like any and this was like we had GI in PoE1 as well, but it kind of works differently. So like effectively, the nice thing that you can do with a really good GI is that you can light objects without having to actually place lights in them. Like they just get lit by the glowing parts. Okay. And so you just get a really nice like soft form of lighting from certain things. And certain areas can actually be lit entirely with the GI system, which is just really nice. Like you get the ability to do some lighting that's just really quite different than what PoE1 has been capable of. Nice. So yeah, like that's pretty cool. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that...
Wear diapers. By the way, if you are a speedrun aficionado and you're new to my stream, make sure you follow. I give tips about speedrunning pissing on a weekly.
Like we didn't actually port over, but not really. Like, because we've tried to get everything as much as possible to be the same. Just for asset portability. So there's quite a lot of stuff to do with like one of the engine features we have is the ability to read this is like real technical stuff, but to read the material that's on the ground and use that in the shader of a thing that's sitting on top.
Yeah.
And that lets you do things like, for example, we use that in the the bear slam. Yeah. When the bear does a slam, like the actual ground that's under the bear, like the chunks of rubble that come up are like red from the ground that's actually there, so that kind of like fits to the area. So that's kind of cool. That's very cool. And there's a few that's actually used quite a lot, like in more subtle ways. The bear is like really obvious.
Do I do one or two shakes? I don't shake. Shaking is a misplay. That's amateur. Imagine shaking. Shaking is inefficient.
It's because it's like big chunks of terrain that kind of come up. So that's another one.
That's very cool.
What's another one that's like PoE2 only? I'm not sure. As I said, most of the things get moved over. Like, I mean, look, one of the things that's gone on generally is that all of the we've upgraded the part. So we used to use in PoE1 originally a like CPU based particle system, and then for most of PoE2's development, we've had this like GPU based particle system, and that just means that the particles can look way nicer. And like that is available in PoE1, but it's just like all those assets were made like a long time ago, right? So they all use the old system. So like just what we're doing with particle systems now is just like way cooler, in my opinion. Like just like a lot of the graphics, like there's stuff like the particles will respond to like wind in the environment. So like if you have like explosions, you can have like wind events on the explosions that will cause like other particles that are around to just get pushed away and stuff like that. Like there's just like little cool things like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I don't know. There's just like there's nice little touches, but as I said, all that stuff is theoretically available in PoE1. It's just it would require us like redoing a bunch of effects to actually take advantage of it. Yeah, probably some of the newer stuff in the leagues probably does, but most stuff isn't that. Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully that answers some of those questions.
No, that was great. Actually, I thought of another thing. Guild tabs. Guilds are not transferring over to PoE2. What about guild stash tabs?
So because of the fact the guild isn't, it means the stash tabs aren't either. And that's kind of unfortunate because I would want that to happen. But in order to, the guilds just aren't integrated across both games. So therefore, because one guild owns the tab, and that guild isn't across, like therefore the tabs are where they are. And as I said, that's really not a like policy decision. It's just a kind of technical decision. So I suppose in order to fix that, we'd have to merge the guilds of PoE1 and 2, and like I wouldn't even be against that idea. It's just requires more work than what we have time to do, unfortunately.
So the answer is basically we will have to buy the stash tabs again, right?
You will for that, yes, unfortunately. But as I said, I just wish that wasn't the case, but it just is, unfortunately, just due to the way that we couldn't get the guilds merged.
No, that's fine. Sarah, is PoE Mobile still being worked on?
It's not being worked on right now. Like we put it on hold when we like as we realized that we needed the resources, and effectively the people who were working on that.
Will I make a guild for Path of Exile 2? Probably. I think it would be fun. We could just share loot for like the league start for the start, and you guys can join my guild if you want.
They then were the ones who then were taking over the.
Bro, how else do you think I'm going to take donations so I can survive in hardcore? I need my chat to feed me items and currencies so I can pretend to be really good at the game and get a lot of viewers. What kind of question is that?
The console interface for PoE2. So what that meant was that we suddenly had a team that could actually work on all that stuff and do all the work that we need to do for console. So the intention would be that when we get to the point of feeling comfortable with like PoE2 is fine, like all the interface stuff is like all resolved, like, you know, we're out of early access, we're kind of like everything's good, then would be keen to restart the console version, the mobile version again. But for the time being, we're not working on it. Yeah, we'll just have to get to the point where like feel okay, yeah, the console version of PoE2 is like is good enough that we can get some of the resources and move them over again.
Awesome. I don't know if the last one's like a question. I just want to throw my hat in the, oh my god, please let us mute other player sounds. I hate the goblin troops. I want to throw my hat in that.
Okay.
So much.
Understood. Yeah, understood. I'll talk to them about it.
Awesome. That was pretty much all the questions I had. Like, thank you so much. Like, we are a few days out for launch and you're taking time to do this. We all the community super appreciate it. Yeah, thank you so much. And we're very excited to play PoE 2 when it comes out.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you very much for, you know, giving me a chance to talk to you guys again. It's always fun.